Number 10, goal setting meeting of Benton Board of Commissioners with a call to order and introductions. My name is Anna Ogerow, Chair.
Nancy Wise, Commissioner.
Pat Malone, Commissioner.
Rachel McInerney, County Administrator.
Tammy Tracy, Director of Assessment.
Abe Shepherd, Commissioner-elect.
Nick Prager, Assistant County Administrator.
Barb BOC.
Andrew Bates, CIO.
Greg Minor, Finance.
And do we have anyone joining us online? Okay. So thank you. And are there any changes or additions to the agenda? Hearing none, we will consider the agenda approved. Any announcements today? Onward then to approval of the minutes from November 13th, 2023. Have you had a chance to look at it?
I have, just curious why that's not a consent agenda or why they're a year old or.
If I know backlog would be, that's a year old. And, I don't know about the consent part.
We usually we usually do that just as a straight motion for goal setting and for meetings other than our regular board meetings.
Okay.
So, but, yeah,
I'll move to approve the November 13th, 2023 goal setting meeting minutes.
Second.
all in favor signify with an eye. Aye, thank you. On to new business. We have a handful of, well, a couple of sponsorship requests. One was from the Corvallis Public Schools Foundation for the January 30th Hands Across Corvallis fundraising breakfast. I don't think we've sponsored this one in the past. I've always attended, but sometimes I've hosted tables for them. But they are wondering whether we consider a sponsorship for the foundation this year. And I don't know exactly what the status of our budget is for the commissioners.
For the rest of this current biennium, which ends June 30th, sponsorship has $3,000 available at this time.
Okay. And the next item is also, well, it's a membership, so that's slightly different. But I would be supportive of a sponsorship for the Corvallis Public Schools Foundation breakfast, but it's just one district in the county, so they do provide significant programming. But up for discussion.
Is there a requested amount for the sponsorship?
I don't believe that there was a specific amount. There was, as usual, a range of different levels and with, name as a supporter. And I don't recall what the lowest level was.
500.
And the lowest level for recognition in the program is 500.
Charts on page 15. of the
Thank you. If the alternative is just to attend and make sure that you bring people with you, which is,
Yeah, I usually can't attend that one. That's one that's early in the morning. right?
Yes.
Yeah, my as someone with kids, getting them to the bus in school, I can't go, but
yeah.
and I'm okay sponsoring. I don't have a problem with that.
I guess, how many school districts do we have in the county?
I'll see Monroe, Philomath, or
Albany.
Albany. Thank you. 5.
And the trend is if we do it once, then it seems to get on the list and it's recurring. Maybe at some point it'd be nice to, do we have a list of schools and other chamber of commerce and at some point, I think it'd be nice to have a comprehensive list instead of doing it ad hoc and
I would be happy to have something put together for the January goal setting, so you can look at the various memberships from NACO on down to some of the chamber levels. One of the membership considerations for today is for the Paloma Chamber.
Yeah.
And then I can certainly put that information together, and if you want, you could then make some final decisions for the upcoming biennium, and we can, plan accordingly.
Question, though.
For those strategic position hearings.
Do memberships come out of a different line item than the contributions do?
Yes, we have sponsorships
yeah.
budget line item for something for these types
Yeah.
of events, and then we have a specific.
Yeah.
More substantive membership.
So I think that the issue at hand here is those contributions, not the memberships
Okay.
per se. And so the contributions have always been on a pretty much an ad hoc basis. But what probably would be useful is a list of those that we've contributed to in the past. There are some that we can have contributed to year over year, every year since I've been in office. And others that we contribute to intermittently. So I think it's good to mix it up and not necessarily sponsor the same group every time.
Well, along those lines, just make sure we're spreading
Mhm.
contributions around the county.
Mhm.
And so it would help me anyway. But here's our budget, here's what we've done. X amount is uncommitted as of first of the year, what we're talking about.
Yeah, getting a regular report on how much we have in that would probably be a good idea. I think the only other school district that has a foundation is Albany. I may be wrong, but that's my sense. So in terms of this type of fundraising, and those larger districts use that for summer programming and for a lot of enrichment programming and student support groups and grants to provide additional capacity in classroom, a whole variety of things. Yeah.
On a somewhat unrelated note, I think it would be helpful also to have that other list though of what memberships we have. And maybe put it online somewhere so that if the public wants to see what memberships we have, it's easy to find. If I want to see what memberships we have, it'd be easy for me to find.
We can certainly make that an agenda topic for next month in goal setting.
Okay.
We could pull that together and then try to see if we're going down a slippery slope or not, and maybe work out a strategy.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
So is there enough sentiment for a motion, or would we like to pass on this opportunity?
I'm fine donating. I just don't have an amount in my head, so I mean, what do you think?
Well, if we donate, I think it's worthwhile getting credit.
Yeah,
Okay.
so one consideration is on page 15, you have the different, advocate supporter. I mean, you do, if you do $1,000, you do get a little bit additional social media attention. Again, depends on. But with the $500, you would just basically get the name logo.
Mhm.
Might
On the program,
might be worth if you want to get a little social media attention on it, go to $1,000.
and we have, you said 3,000 left
$3,000.
for the rest of the biennium, which is the next 6 months. So we do have a substantial kitty.
Sure. I'm trying to think like, the Chamber of Commerce Celebrate Corvallis usually
Yep,
table about Philomath Samaritan Awards.
and and that's
Um,
probably another, 1,200 there or less,
okay.
because Philomath Chamber is really inexpensive.
Oregon.
Mhm.
Oregon.
Okay, well, I would move to sponsor in the amount of $1,000.
Second.
All in favor signify with an eye.
I
Aye. Okay, thank you. And good topic for discussion moving forward with Commissioner-elect Shepherd's voice in the discussion. Next topic is consideration of membership in Philomath Area Chamber of Commerce. We've been members for years, and it's not a high price item. Their lunches are always fun.
I go to most of their luncheons and I would be in favor of continuing to be a member. And I'm seeing here that we get 2 free sip and stroll tickets. Who's been getting those?
I don't think we've been taking advantage of it.
Okay, well, now that I know.
But there's only two, so you can only bring one check.
Oh my gosh.
They don't count, do they?
No.
They can't sell. Do I hear a motion?
What's the price tag?
Page 17, there are several levels based on business description. And there is one, the civic organizations at 275.
And is that what we've been,
And I apologize, I don't have a history on this.
okay,
To look in
I
munis.
assume that that's
Mhm.
what it is.
But I can let you know that your membership's budget line item is quite substantive. So any level that you would select here would almost no impact.
We have AOC membership coming up.
Yeah.
That's the biggie.
Okay, well, I would move to approve renewing our membership for the Falmouth Area Chamber of Commerce as a civic organization for $275.
Second?
All in favor, please signify with an eye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. The next topic is initiation of building naming process for 4185 Southwest Research Way in accordance with the new policy that was adopted recently. So in this case, all that requires is a vote of the board to direct County Administrator McEnany to bring back either a name or a variety of names for the naming of 4185 Southwest Research Way.
I guess my comment is, appreciate the work that's gone in to update the naming process and I think we've been in this unnamed building for 7 or 8 months now. It's time for a name.
Okay. Be happy to bring back some names. If there's anybody who'd like to nominate a name at the goal setting, please.
Or
Please speak.
indicate the variety of names or the range of names.
Absolutely, if there's anything
So
that you
either
would like.
specific or a range.
Mhm.
And I think we should memorialize this with a vote. So
Okay,
So are we looking for suggested names now? Or at the
yes,
December
because we've asked Rachel to come back with those names in a formal proposal on the 17th. That's,
If we make this motion, that's what
Yes.
we're asking.
yes. And so that includes having staff do a little bit of research to ensure that those names meet our naming policy. So, yeah.
Well, where this started, I wanted to recognize Representative Rayfield for his considerable help in the last several years in getting funding for several county projects and facilities. And I especially on this building where he got the entire funding for the building. That would be appropriate to name the building after Representative Rayfield. Guess he's still representing
Not for much longer.
for another month. So that would be my suggestion.
I prefer not to name buildings after people. I think if we are going to name it after a person, I prefer that that person is already passed, and we've had time to make sure that there's no unsavory, information to come out about them. Not that I think that that would happen with Representative Rayfield, but that's just kind of my way of thinking. If we are going to name it after a person, there's a lot of things that are named after men. We could perhaps find an influential woman to name the building after. But again, I don't think we have to name it after anybody specifically. I know that Rayfield did a very good job supporting us and doing his job. If he had opened his personal checkbook and written us a $5 million check, I would be probably pretty persuaded to name it after him, but it's the state's money. It wasn't his money. And I don't want to discount the work that he did. But again, I just prefer not to name after people.
I think another consideration is that we have 4185 Southwest Research Way to name, but we also have the Crisis Center, we have a courthouse, we have an Emergency Operations Center. So we have a lot of facilities to name coming up, and I say we, you all, in the next few months. So this is just a one in a series of naming processes that the county will be undertaking. So, and to my mind, I understand what you're saying. My preference is also not to name after living people. But Speaker Rayfield was instrumental in the funding for almost every one of those facilities. And we wouldn't be where we are without his assistance with state dollars. So in this case, I think that it's an appropriate name to consider. I'm not sure if this particular facility is the one that I would use it for. That's where I come in, you know, maybe that the EOC is more appropriate. It may be, you know, given that he's becoming the AG of the state, that it's the courthouse that's more appropriate. So that's where I land. I personally, I would rather have a more open slate for consideration for the children and families mental health facility, because Rayfield doesn't have a particular nexus to children's mental health in the same way that he does to jurisprudence.
Okay.
Perhaps a list that's varied options, one with.
We have a list that we've looked at when we named this building. Again, but again, if over the week, you as commissioners have a name that you would like us to look at, please let us know. You've been part of this community longer than I have, so it would be very helpful to have some names also that you that have meant something to you. It doesn't have to be someone from Benton County. It can be someone who's been a champion of children and families that you would like to consider, or it doesn't be someone, it can be something else as well. An
Okay.
acknowledgement to our land, and which we did with this building and the tribes, but I just.
Could also consider the other two buildings here on this same on Research Way, Sunset and Calapooia. But, you know, do we have any kind of a theme? Would we like to have more of a thematic feel? Yeah.
And what remind me of why we didn't want to go with children and families mental health building, because there's going to be more in the building, is that?
This has been brought up for 7 or 8 months about the naming of a building. So, you know, we've just been calling it the Children and Families Building. So I think it will still be called a Children and Families Building, but but I mean, we would have the name as well as a acknowledgement to Representative Rayfield for all his hard work and diligence.
If we choose a name after Rayfield, but if we choose to name it after something else, then it would be a different name, right?
Mhm.
And the other thing to consider is that at present, there are two tenants in the building as well. And so calling it the Children and Families, behavioral health building is partially appropriate, but the other tenants in the building probably don't want to call themselves that. So if it had a name, it might be a little bit easier for wayfinding for them as well.
Well,
And
and buildings change function.
Yep, yep.
So naming it for one function might work for a while, and then you change the name because now it has different tenants. And,
So can we get a list that has Rayfield's name and then some other, maybe the names that were left over from the last round?
Certainly, and we'll do a naming
some-
process. Absolutely. So, excuse me, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
It would be nice to also find like I said, an influential female woman.
Okay.
If we could do that. And if I think of anything specific, I will email you.
Absolutely.
Would we like to memorialize this decision with a motion?
Yes,
I would entertain such a motion.
I'll move to initiate a resource naming process for the 4185 Southwest Research Way building and direct staff to include a naming decision agenda item on the board's December 17th, 2024 meeting agenda.
Second,
All in favor, please signify with an eye.
I,
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, is the discussion of the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, CPACE, with Christopher Jacobs. And before you begin, I do have a quick question. This is listed as a discussion topic, but there is in the packet a motion to advance this to a public hearing and a more formal process. So I just wanted to know that and to clarify whether we are intending to make a decision today to move forward or not. Is it up to us?
Yeah,
It is ultimately up to you.
Okay.
If you're happy with the explanation of the program and you're ready to advance that to a public hearing and consideration, the documents are all ready to go. So, but
we thought just bringing this to goal setting to have more of an open discussion
Yeah.
with you and then let you give us direction in terms of next steps.
Okay.
So with that, I expect this conversation could be a little bit more in the weeds about the details. And so I'll just start very broadly by describing what the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program is. This is a tool that's used in 38 states and the District of Columbia. More than $2 billion has been invested through this mechanism. It's essentially a special assessment that can be used to finance energy efficiency improvements, renewable energy upgrades, seismic upgrades to buildings, which, as we know, are pretty badly needed in a lot of our historic resources. And the elegance of this particular program, modeled after Deschutes County, which was modeled after a program in Washington, is that a lot of the onus is put on the financing, the third-party financing company, and the business or property owner receiving the benefit. Previously, efforts to establish a commercial assess or property assessed clean energy program around the state have fizzled out because of a lack of third-party capital providers. And that environment in Oregon has really improved quite a bit. And so we have several development projects, both some public and some still in confidential review, that would benefit from this and have inquired over the last year and a half about this tool. When I started writing it, I think there were only 2 other counties that had adopted programs, Multnomah and Deschutes. And I've learned since in speaking with Deschutes that other communities have adopted since or are planning to adopt similar ordinances. This isn't a widely used program in Deschutes County, although across the country it is very broadly used. And so a lot of the questions that we had internally revolved around just sort of the process, right? So right now it's written that the county administrator's office can designate the responsibility of processing applications. And our office has the capacity and is willing to serve in that role so that we wouldn't add extra burden onto county staff. There is a checklist here. So somebody fills out all of the required information. They submit it, and it's as simple as us going through the checklist to make sure that all the required documents are there. After we verify that all the required documents are there, a lien is put on the property, and repayment happens between the property owner and the third-party capital provider. Now, the only time that a special assessment is actually put on the property is in the case of default. And so that's the mechanism to secure the financing, is a lien against the property and a special assessment that could be levied against the property owner. So what this does is it adds another layer in the capital stack to finance these sorts of improvements to physical buildings that otherwise can't get traditionally financed. This was just another tool in the toolbox for us to incentivize development and the types of improvements to physical buildings that I think we all want to see, right? We all want energy efficiency, renewable energy, and seismic improvements. So I'd say the administrative burden is very limited. There are application fees attached to it that more than cover the cost without making it burdensome and still providing a benefit to those who may seek the incentive. And we've talked this through with county staff to make sure that this process is pretty well understood in terms of what happens when we get an application and how it moves through that pipeline. Some of the questions that came up is how often do we expect this to be used? Once or twice a year in a good year would be fantastic. We'll go some years where it doesn't get used at all.
So when we talked about this program previously, there was much more of an administrative burden that would have been would have landed in Tammy Tracy's department in assessment. And it sounds like this is much more streamlined. I like the approach. And of course, recording, we'll have to do a little bit more work, but that generates fees. So that's all dandy. I think it's very exciting, particularly in light of the city of Corvallis' focus on downtown. And I think frankly, just like looking at state level, Portland matters. Corvallis definitely matters to Benton County. And we are all very interested in downtown remaining really vital and vibrant. And with all those brick and mortar buildings that need seismic stabilization and definitely need HVAC upgrades, I think this is a very opportune program. And I would think that there would probably be kind of a surge in use and then a decline as over time, given that downtown focus. But I'm very supportive. I've been wanting to see this program in place ever since the idea was first floated. So that was pre-pandemic.
Commissioner, Christopher thinks to need to sit down with Tammy as well as James, since they both would have some impacts, but like you said, that we were not anticipating huge volume. I think both Tammy and James supported of this. They'd understood what their roles and responsibilities would be.
Yeah, and the assessment's role doesn't really kick in unless people default. Yeah.
One thing to note, this is great for historic buildings, and you're totally right about downtown. There are many industrial properties that stand to benefit tremendously as well. I mean, the Sealy building in Adair Village, or some properties in Philomath in particular. And so I can tell you, not all of the inquiries have actually been in Corvallis.
Good.
So I really think of it as a countywide program that stands to benefit countywide businesses. I really thought it was focused on Corvallis. It just gone to city council, but I think this is something that we could all benefit from countywide.
Or even if just the city of Corvallis adopted it, there would still be a role for assessment and records and elections department. So yeah, I'm happy to support it, and even happier to hear that there are industrial properties that are interested in using it.
Love to track it and see, like, in a year or two, how many people are actually using the program to see if it's, it's got legs. Yeah.
And that segues really nicely into something that our office is moving more into, which is beginning to track each incentive, tax exemption, and public dollar that we commit to projects and calculating a return on that investment. Statewide, many economic development offices are understaffed. They don't collect that data on their own operations. And so in aggregate, it's hard to know which programs are most effective in generating a return on investment. And so we have a meeting with assessment staff actually this week to talk through some of those opportunities to track this information more effectively internally, and try and figure out, okay, so for every public dollar that we provide on the front end or buy a tax exemption, what is the return on that investment over the time horizon? And so I think we're getting more sophisticated in how we're looking at this and how we're tracking it. A year and a half ago, we weren't really talking about taxable value growth. We weren't tracking that nor vacancy rate. And so I think we're really starting to hum in terms of our internal metrics and data that we're using to help guide decision making. And this fits perfectly into that, to your point.
Excellent.
Well, I'm supportive, with all the challenges to opening a business and continuing a business, and even these days, the basis of most of our businesses are brick and mortar, and some of those brick and mortar need significant upgrades from 120 years ago or whenever they were built. And I think it's critical to at the launch of our version of this is as soon as we can get a couple success stories. So I'm guessing this is a little bit of an obscure program that a lot of people don't know about. And so if it's just a theory, maybe not so interested, but if you have a couple specific businesses that took advantage of it and it worked out, that I think it would get the program moving forward and get on people's radar that this is, say, one of the tools in the toolbox. With all the challenges of being in business and staying in business, I think if we can help a little bit, that would be wise.
It's interesting to think about. What I'm hearing you say is that this is a tool that helps to entice new investment into some of these properties. And I'd be curious to know how many new businesses are recruited in part because of this incentive to upgrade the infrastructure, and how many existing owners use it to upgrade their properties. Because the dynamics and the incentives are very different. So.
Those nuances are very interesting to me. I think about this all the time. So I love where your head's at on that.
Well, I'm supportive of this. Some of the line of thinking that Commissioner Ojo was going down got me thinking. I know at least before COVID, there was talk of the space needed for like studio space, like for artists, and even like, small like apartment units up in the top of some of those old buildings downtown. But issues like not having sprinkler systems and safety, I don't think that this would qualify. Like safety improvements, I don't think would fall under this. But is there anything, do we have anything like that? Do those building owners have any mechanism to update safety stuff currently?
You're walking right into another project that we're talking about at City Council, which is tax increment financing district downtown. And we had a really positive discussion at a work session last week. I anticipate we'll be proceeding with a feasibility study in early 2025, fingers crossed, and that there's a path forward to establish that tax increment financing district, which would directly provide for ADA improvements that are badly needed and these sorts of mixed use projects where they're not financially feasible without major public investment. Activating those spaces would be tremendous in a myriad of ways. Adding more housing units, bringing more people downtown to patronize businesses, helping the cash flow of each property. Those really serve as anchors to make sure that private property owners could be a little bit more experimental with their commercial if they have that reliable income coming in through residential units in a mixed use building. And so I know our office environment is still pretty strong. There's been, while other communities have seen office vacancy rates go crazy high, we have folks investing in office space and quickly filling that. But there remains tons of opportunities to convert upper units to residential, and tax increment financing is a perfect tool for that. And we're talking about that a lot.
Awesome.
Is there a motion to proceed? Would entertain such.
What are we authorizing, I guess?
Moving forward with the creation of a CPACE program for a public hearing.
I move to direct staff to schedule a public hearing and first reading of the ordinance as provided or amended by Benton County Board of Commissioners.
Second,
Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify with an eye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure, it's been great in terms of, coming and helping explain to me, especially in terms of this initiative and being just a bringing opportunities for the county. So really appreciation for your work on this, Christina.
You're very welcome. Pleasure is mine.
Thank you.
Okay, moving forward and to presentation by Tammy Tracy from the Assessment Department.
All right.
It fits very nicely with the topic that we just heard.
Yes, yes, and the urban renewal district downtown will be very interesting. That is a lot of work for us, but, and you know that takes a lot away
It takes it
well.
It
So
takes setup dollars. Yeah.
urban renewal is one complex taxation component, but of course, we support whatever needs to be done. So Rachel asked me, urban renewal, we have Philomath, now we have South Corvallis, we have Albany. And urban renewal plays into a lot of different pieces when it comes to taxation and districts losing revenue and compression, because when you take the children that pay into the urban renewals, the little pieces of it that go to the urban renewal from each levy, those are all Measure 5 government compression. So that adds to the government compression component of it, even if it's a school, even if it's a piece of the school, once it goes to the urban renewal, it becomes government. So it affects government compression through all the accounts as well. So compression is probably a day training.
Have you been at the table for any of the discussions about potential downtown urban renewal district?
No, we saw it in the newspaper and Jenny and I both went, well, but
Yeah.
they're just not fun to set up. They're just a lot
No,
of hard work.
I remember it was the South Corvallis urban renewal
Yeah.
district. Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of front end
It
work
does.
to get the data set up.
Get your frozen value and all of that set
Yeah.
up and your new TCA tax code areas and all of that. So, but driving through the city of Corvallis downtown, it would definitely benefit
Mhm.
for that, by that. No.
I think that it's just going to be important moving forward that everyone understand the costs and the benefits.
Right.
And because otherwise we are again open to criticism from the community about taking away value, and we need to be very clear about what those pros and cons are.
Right.
Personally, I believe in the pros. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have to be clear-eyed. Okay,
Okay, so Rachel asked me to come today before the end of the year. And so I want to make it clear, we're talking about 2023 data today. When we come, I will be coming back to the board late winter, early spring, and we'll do a comparison for you all of 23 and 24 data numbers.
Calendar.
Calendar, we went ahead and just went calendar year. So just real quick, I imagine you all know what our mission is, but our mission is to administer the property tax program accurately, fairly, and efficiently in compliance with Oregon state laws, and to provide the highest level of customer service to those that we serve. And I really truly do mean the highest level of customer service. We take great pride in our department that's one of our main focuses and goals within the department. Primary functions include valuing, of course, all real and business personal property. We're responsible for mapping. We administer special assessment programs such as farm forest. We maintain property owner information. We process all tax exemptions. We don't have it on here, but we do enterprise zone exemptions as well. And then we go through all the way through taxable, calculating taxable values, and we actually extend the taxes. So then we sign off to the tax office, who then prints the statements and collects the funds.
You want to put the slides?
Oh,
I can go along with it.
I'm
I can
sorry.
take it for you.
No, I'll remember. I'm supposed to point this way.
There you go.
Okay, sorry, I apologize. All right,
And so the tax office is in finance.
correct. Tax office is in the finance department. Just some highlights, and I also did bring 2024 data, but what you're looking at here is 2023 data. We had over roughly 40,384 real and personal property counts. We had a real market value of 24.2 billion. And then the assessed value there of 10,776,000, excuse me. Total taxes imposed for the entire county were 192 million. And in Benton County, our permanent tax rate, we extended 23,584. We had $5,485 in Measure 5 compression loss, which taxes imposed them were 23,578. And we also had disquals. We processed corrections, and those will be collected, which is noted there, corrections and late filing penalties. So overall in 23, off of the Benton County permanent levy, we received 23,783,000. In 24, just real quick, you don't have this data. In 24, we imposed total taxes was 199 million, almost 200 million. The permanent rate generated $24,340 in taxes. We had roughly the same amount of compression loss, 5,746.
24 million.
I'm sorry, 24 million. What did I say? 1,000?
Yeah. It's easy to
Sad.
Yeah, that would be sad. So we ended up bringing in for the Benton County permanent rate in 24 was 24,334,000. The local option, we lose a lot of compression to local option because local options are the first thing that gets compressed out, and they will compress all the way to meet the requirements of Measure 5. So the Benton County local option in 23 was 9,699,000. In 24, it's a little over 10 million. We lost 137,000 in 23 and 141,000 in 24. So the taxes imposed in 23 were 9,562,000, and in 24 it was 9,878,000. Total compression loss for the county. I don't think I have it on here for 23. But total compression for all districts in Benton County in 24 was a little over $2 million. And remember, Measure 5 sets limits on the amount of taxes levied per $1,000 of real market value. It's the only calculation in Measure 50, Measure, and all of our tax regulations that is off of real market value and not the assessed value.
Tammy, is it normal to collect 100% or better of taxes owed?
That's more of a tax question. I think we're pretty high though, aren't we? 90?
We're usually always percentage or so above what we had estimated. In terms of actions.
It's also, that's a couple of things, right? That's people that are late from previous periods, and it's also the late filing penalties
Or,
that puts us over.
oh, yes, that would be, yes, the late filing penalties and the corrections and those kinds of things.
Past
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit about here, but we've been doing a lot of reappraisals, so we've been collecting a lot. Unfortunately or fortunately, we're doing a lot of omitted property. We're going up properties we haven't been to in a long time. And in the rural areas, they like to build stuff without permits. I mean, often you get an ag permit and people don't think that, you know,
putting an apartment in there.
yeah. So anyways, we've been adding a lot of value. And then typically people aren't really that surprised when they know that they're gonna get something added to the tax roll that they've had for 10 years and weren't getting taxed on it. So
And just to be clear, so the taxes that we took in, that number is not just all for Benton County, that's divided across all the taxing jurisdictions within Benton.
correct. Let's see, so the administration staff in 23, these are some of the main projects or tasks, if you will, that they work on. We do a lot of mailing and situs address changes when we send out tax bills and they all come back to us. We are constantly updating mailing addresses. So we did 1,627 of those in 23. We process ownership change off of all deeds, research deeds, make sure the legals are correct before we process ownership changes. We did 2,700 of those. We process manufactured structure sales. So we actually, not only do we process the sale in our taxation system, we process the sale through the building codes mod system. So we're doing two components there. And we often will issue trip permits. If someone comes in, we do issue trip permits for individuals to move those homes. This past year, we did a lot of data cleanup. We cleaned up over 7,844 accounts. A lot of this was, we had a lot of 3,000-year builds on old buildings in our valuation system. And so we spent several weeks trying to get all this data cleaned up so they're valuing accurately. And many cases of those that they need to be fielded as well. But we'll be doing a lot of data cleanup as we get ready to convert into our new system. Property class changes, that's when typically something like that is when it's bare land and they end up building a home. So that requires a property class change. And remember, all of this we have to do in two systems now. When we change a property class, it has to be done in Provo. When we change property class, it has to be done in Ascend. So that when we move into the new system, we'll be entering it in one place only. MAV adjustments, again, the appraisers will calculate the MAV adjustments, and those are typically for segregations or we have to reset MAVs based on partition plat recording dates or subdivision recording dates. So the appraisers do establish the MAV, and then we have to adjust it in Ascend. And again, those are the segs that start with our cartography department. We completed 525 last year. It was slow and it's still slow. There's not a lot of subdivisions, partition plots, those kinds of things.
And what's a MAV?
I'm sorry, MAV is maximum assessed value. So And so if you look into in our system, the maximum assessed value is the value that will go up 3%. The assessed value is always the lower of the real market value or the maximum assessed value. So the maximum assessed value was established back in 1997 by Measure 50. And that started off with the real market value in 1995, less 10%. That became the 1997 MAV, maximum assessed value, and that goes along to 3% unless it hits real market value. And then the assessed value is always the lower of your real market value or your MAV. So MAV is important.
What is a SEG?
A SEG is property segregation.
Okay.
So anytime somebody does something to their property, whether it's a large subdivision, whether it's a lot line adjustment, partition plots or 4 lots, you can process lot lines in some cases by deeds. So it's any change to the physical property, physical land.
Exterior,
Hmm?
any changes, meaning?
Two lot lines.
Two lot lines.
To the land, yeah, like if they want to change this property wants 2 acres and they're going to take 1 acre from this 3 acre parcel, those kinds of things. And this is also an area that we've been working with on with community development, because people sometimes think that, oh, I'm just going to divide my property in half, so my assessed value gets divided in half, or my maximum assessed value gets divided in half. And that's not the way it works. It becomes new property. And so then you have where you're applying a change property ratio and all of this other stuff that I won't get into, I don't think.
Thank you.
And we've also discovered that sometimes people do that, but they don't go through the land use process and they can't divide their property.
Yes,
But they have done so and they've already sold it to a third party, and then the third party gets very, very angry.
yes, we're dealing with that, aren't we? Yes, it's unfortunate. I feel very poorly for those people. New utility accounts, so the Department of Revenue handles our utility role. We created, I think, well, the 274 accounts that we created in 23 were all railroad. So anytime they actually cover miles that go through Benton County. And so we added some new railroad accounts to our utility role. But basically, they data dump it to us, and then we have to go clean up and create new accounts and make sure they're in the values are in the right tax code areas. So that's all stuff that administration has done.
So that's all, the utility accounts is all right away.
Well, no, it can be like Northwest, it can be intangible, so utilities can
Okay.
be the intangibles. Yeah, and it's not a value of, like, they don't have a value for just their building. We had that situation downtown when one of the phone companies owned a business and they were selling it, and the people wanted to know the value of that business. When they do the utility role, they look at, like for Comcast, whatever it may be, they actually look at the statewide revenue from the company, and they formulate a complex ratio that they divide out to each county on those large corporations. And then once it gets to the county, then they have to disperse it out to the appropriate tax code areas. So it's, yeah, anything with utilities, technology, all those kinds of things. There's a lot of value. 20, I want to say it was like 27 million or something this year. So we do several mailings a year. A lot of it is so we do farm rent surveys. So we're sending those out to the farmers. 662 in 23, letting us know what their rent is. That helps us when we do set our especially assessed values. Again, gross income questionnaires, those are also for especially assessed property. They do have requirements, income requirements that they have to meet every 3 years. Lease renewal notices are exemptions. We processed 40 of those. So we send out to our exempt entities, letting them know their lease is coming up and they need to reapply. Real property returns, 101. Those are for our industrial accounts or machinery that are manufacturing in Benton County. That is a self-reporting system like personal property. Sales questionnaires, that number is not right. It was 1,379. We send out questionnaires to individuals who buy property or sell property to buy property, excuse me, confirming the sale of their property. Was it a arm's length transaction? Do they think that they paid the appropriate price? Was there other things involved in the sale? We don't get all that many back. I think we probably got around 300 back. People don't submit those back into us. And then we had the veteran surviving spouse applications, just 40, and EFU, STF, sales notifications, 40. That's when somebody has sold their property and we send them out and let them know that their property is currently in special assessment and you need to do XYZ in order for it to continue to be in that special assess program. A lot of times people don't realize that's why their taxable value is so low.
So if I'm looking at those numbers, that's about 40 sales notifications in 2023 out of 483 folks that are in those special assessed properties. So it's almost a 10% turnover rate in those properties.
Yeah.
That's high.
Yeah.
Is that pretty typical?
Well, what is your, I'm sorry.
The ratio of the EFU STF sales notifications at 40
Oh,
out of a total pool of properties that are in the special taxation at 483. That's, close to 10%. That seems like a pretty high turnover rate of ownership of those
yeah, I've never
properties.
much, honestly, I haven't really much paid attention to that. It's the first time we've really looked at these numbers. That is interesting to note. We'll see next.
Yeah,
Next,
Curious.
yeah, next
Side
year.
by side, yeah.
Yeah, side by side. All right. Appraisal, which we all know, that's one of our primary purposes, is to value properties in Benton County at 100% real market value. Again, new construction's been low. New construction, that means any new single-family home, any new whole building. We fielded, and those all get fielded. We had 1,091 in 2023. I think back 2019, we had like 1,900 new construction. So it's slower there. We did 550 reappraisals, and many of those, as I stated, we find clerical errors or omitted property that we're processing. I take pride in this number. A lot of counties are still not doing reappraisals, or when they say they are doing a reappraisal, they're doing drive-bys. When we do a reappraisal, that means you get out of the car and you measure and you check our measurements and make sure that we have all of the information updated. And hopefully, we don't have the opportunity frequently, but we like to talk to the owners if possible.
What's the reappraisal rate? Do you have the rate that you try, the rate of reappraisal? Do you know how many properties out of the total tax roll that you actually reappraise per year?
Well, we have 40,000 accounts.
Okay.
So that's not very many.
No.
And as we move forward, what we're really trying to do, and hopefully as we reorganize and get the new system, I'd like to get on a 10-year reappraisal cycle. If you'll remember back before Measure 50 passed, it was a requirement that you reappraise every property every 7 years in the county. So when Measure 50 passed, that all went away and everybody laid off all their appraisers and just kept the minimal amount. So by law, by law, by statute, we have to pick up new construction. So we have to field for new construction. We also verify in the field almost all of our sales. If we haven't been there for 10 years, or if the sale price is 25% higher or lower than our RMV, we're gonna visit the property, inspect the property. But I'm hoping that with the new system, we're going to be able to really do a complete reorganization of our department and really focus the admin staff is going to be able to help do some of the basic appraisal functions and get their appraisers out and really working towards a 10-year reappraisal cycle. I think everybody in the state has realized, that before it was reappraisal doesn't matter. Well, reappraisal really does matter. It's important that we get out there because a lot of things happen to properties. I mean, we haven't been to properties for 20 years. So right now, our focus when we're doing reappraisals, we call them no pick, no sketch. So they don't have a picture and they don't have a sketch. And so we're trying to tackle all those first. So we're all over the county. And then at some point in the hopefully not too distant future, we'll be able to do reappraisals of areas. So we'll go on and we'll hit a subdivision. So there's equity amongst that subdivision or, a small, Monroe or whatever it may be, and just try to focus our reappraisals on that. Right now, we're just trying to get those ones we haven't been to for so long. And that number we've already exceeded that number in 24. Sales are important. Again, sales were down last year and they are down this year, but they are a little higher than last year. We enter all of the sales in our taxation system, and we review all of the sales in the appraisal division, and we use the sales for our ratio study. So last year we had 1,587 sales. Again, the segs are mentioned here because the appraisers work the segs, the segregations. We have to divide them out. We have to create assessed value for them. We have to have the new accounts. And our farm forest appraiser disqualified a lot of property in 2023, 233 for not meeting requirements. And in some cases, those disqualifications will be because they want to build on them. If they come in, Adair, they're doing another subdivision out there. So we disqualified some property because they're going to be building residential structures on them. So sometimes those are requested by property owners.
Sometimes because of annexation, so
Yep.
that large number is a reflection of some of that.
Yep.
A quick question. When you go out of reappraisals, how is that decision making made in your office?
What do you mean?
When you go out and look at reappraisals, is it that it's something you're reacting to,
No.
requesting, or are you spot checking and then eventually, I mean, Tammy's a little bit the experiment of really being able for all of you to be able to have data that you can then compare year by year.
Mhm.
So I appreciate Tammy doing this today because the goal is, especially with the change manager position, is for all of you being able to really look at the trends and follow it. So I appreciate you putting this work today. So I don't want to put you in the spot, but
That's fine.
how do you approach the reappraisal process?
So right now, the reappraisal process, we pull data and we can see when it was last appraised.
Mhm.
And it's all data-based, and we're going out to the ones that we have not been to in 20 years.
So from an
20
equity
years.
standpoint, you're trying to spread this around like.
It's being spread around right now.
Okay.
At some point, we will do reappraisals in areas, and I think that at that point, then you put out a news release and say, we'll be reappraising here and we'll be reappraising here. But now it's just spread out amongst all the people that haven't seen us in a very long time.
Right. So I think that would be something, goal setting, we would want to bring back and look at how we'd be
Yeah.
charging forward on that. So
Yeah,
no surprises,
I
right?
just calculated that, 550 divided by 40,000 is 1% a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Your appraisal rate.
And you'll see when I come to the budget process through the upcoming biennium that I'll be requesting some significant changes in our structure, some new positions to help realign with really trying to get some more focus on the appraisal piece of it.
Tanya, on the lack of physically appraising sites since measure 54750, was the theory, well, so they're gonna go up 3% a year, and so why bother with the old system of actually seeing what was out there?
Yeah, that's what it appeared. Like I said, even our assessment office, we had many, I think we had 17 appraiser, not 17 appraisers, but back in 2021, it took away, it took away the requirement to do the 7-year reappraisal cycle. And that was just the legislative decision when they passed that. So when you're told, oh, you don't have to do it, then all the counties said, oh, I can save all this money and cut all these positions. And that's what happened. But today, now looking back, you know, if you're only going to new construction and sales, and a lot of counties, don't even field a lot of their sales. They will just pick and choose ones that look way out of kilter, and they will field those. And we do field all of those, especially like I mentioned, if we haven't been there in 10 years. So a lot of those sales, actually, you could say are also reappraisals, because we haven't been there in 10 years, so we're fielding them. So yes, it is important also because it does affect, you know, it affects your Measure 5 compression. And so the counties, we've talked about at our association and our meetings and whatnot, and counties are focusing on reappraisal now and trying to get out in the field. A lot of them don't have funding to do it. And a lot of them, like I mentioned, they call reappraisals, drive by and take a picture and look at it. And but that to me really is a reappraisal, so.
You can only see so much from the road.
Yeah.
The other issue, of course, is that counties kind of got into a downward spiral because they cut their staff. The cost of the appraisal function, the assessment function went down, relatively speaking. And then the state started funding less and less and less
Yep.
of that assessment
Mhm.
function.
Yep. Yep.
So.
And that's
right now-
still, obviously, you all know that that's a problem.
Yeah, and so that's a huge problem. So the counties kind of are in a rut.
Yes.
And I'm grateful to your management because I feel like we are in better shape than many counties are.
I agree, and I feel fortunate to have been funded and been able to keep the positions. Some counties, some counties are really having a rough time, and Curry County is really struggling right now. So, I appreciate that we've been able to keep our appraisal staff, and I'm hoping, like I said, I'm going to come to the budget committee in the upcoming biennium, and hopefully we can make some good changes going forward that'll help us with this process even more. Let's see, so we also are responsible for valuing all business personal property. And so anybody that runs and operates a business, whether it's in their home or a commercial building, they are responsible for filing a business personal property statement. In 2023, we had 2,060 business personal property returns that we processed. Now remember, we implemented e-filing in 2023. We had 1,323 businesses that filed electronically. We did go ahead because it was our first year. We actually reviewed every single e-filing account. We didn't just push them through.
Okay.
And then the remainder came still via paper.
How is that system working?
It works pretty well this year. It's, we're still having to train. We're still having to train some businesses. This year, we had some reporting problems on the customers, and then we had to do some corrections. We did more corrections this year than I would have liked. The unfortunate part is when we moved to ORCATs, when we moved to our new system, our e-filing is going to change. So we're going to cause all kinds of confusion and commotion. But I do want to continue to do the e-filing, and ORCATs has the ability to do that. So it's going to be a bit of a bumpy bump when we move, but.
And ORCATS is a statewide system.
ORCATs there's really no statewide system. The Department of Revenue went on that venture, and we talked about it since I've been here for 20-some years, and they just can't get it together. The Department of Revenue right now is very in the back, the back, I don't know, 40. They are really not supportive. We don't have much engagement with them anymore. They won't come to meetings in person. They're all remote, and it's just a very odd relationship. So now they've lost a lot of experience, and so the counties really have more knowledge than the Department of Revenue. So there's only there's ORCATs in Oregon, and they have over half of the counties, which we'll be going to. And it's a homegrown out of Salem. And then we have Tyler. And Tyler has Multnomah and Washington and Douglas, I believe. Oh, and Lincoln. And then there's still gonna be 4 on Ascend ProVal, and then they went out for a, they went out they're going out for our RFP for a new system, so they'll end up with one of those 2. That's really our only choices
And we've been on Ascend ProVal.
since 2001.
Yeah.
Yep,
But yeah,
yeah.
so, okay, this makes sense. I was
Yeah.
remembering the discussions of this new system. Now I
Right.
understand where it fits the process.
Yes. Yes, we've been on it for a very long time. They don't upgrade it. They really have left Oregon kind of in the dust, and they kept talking about providing us, new technology, and then they wanted us to pay millions of dollars for their new technology, and they're just gonna go away. They're just gonna go away. They're not gonna stay in Oregon. Let's see. Cartography, so we have 2 individuals in our cartography department. So new tax lots created, 138, tax lots combined, 14. Updating maps, 45. And Tim will go through, and he's been doing a lot of map cleanup to make sure all the lines are in place. Property line adjustments, we just talked about, where you're making an adjustment, right-of-way dedications, typically for a road. Right-of-way vacations. We had 4 annexations, either into the city or rural fire. Tax code area changes, probably going in and out of rural fire, or again, in and out of the city. In the city, and then acreage changes over about 61 acreage changes. So that's just a bit of what cartography
How
does.
do acres change?
Acres would change. Well, I think sometimes they're changing when we do map updates. When deeds come through and we reread the legal, we'll see that there is a slight acreage change. I'm not sure exactly what they're pulling into that, because you could also have acreage changes when we're doing subdivisions and creating new lots and all of those kinds of things. I have a feeling those are just kind of corrections, but I'll get more information on exactly what that number is coming from.
Well, surveying technology has improved an awful lot, and so as
We
we'll
get new
there, yeah.
surveys in and whatnot. I mean, there's been times when we've been off 10 acres, just from old data to new data. So somebody is like, I have 10 acres that I don't really have. So yeah, as new information comes in, and that we have only the best, we have the information that is provided to us, be it surveys and updated tax documents. So, and Tim goes through and does mapping corrections, and we'll find changes of acreage during that period of time. And we notify the taxpayer. And at the end of the day, you never rely on if you want to know exactly where your property line is and how much property you have, you need to get a survey. Exemptions, we process a lot of exemptions. This takes probably the half FTE to process all of the exemptions in Benton County. In 2023, we processed 175. The veterans and surviving spouses, and then we have various charitable, religion, educational, benevolent, low-income housing. We have some new special low-income housing coming in 25, I believe. And then, of course, government entities. And that's another thing I wanted to bring up when we're talking about our assessed value growth. We have to remember that when Benton County buys buildings, when Samaritan buys buildings, when OSU buys buildings, which there's been a lot of, that all comes off the tax roll, and that decreases our AV growth. So I wanted to mention that when we talk, specifically when we talk about our taxable value increases. See,
There's also there's a senior exemption, or it's not exactly an exemption, it's basically a deferred value.
deferral, senior
Yeah,
deferral.
Yeah, do you process much of that?
We do that for the Department of Revenue. We really just notate the account, and then the deferrals, DOR pays the tax bill. So we maintain our property accounts with the information provided by the Department of Revenue, and then they process it. And there is a talk out there, it hasn't, there's been talk about some kind of senior exemption based on age and income. But that it didn't go anywhere. I think those would be really hard to administer. But there has been discussion. So just in other projects that we worked on, we've been working on our tax card cleanup for, a long time. What we found is we had failed to remove all of the confidential information such as social security numbers. So what our goal is we want all this tax law cards on our website so people can log on and do their own property research and whatnot and have that available. So we're gonna finish that this year or maybe in 25, but we're almost done. This is our second time around to make sure we didn't miss anything. And then we're hoping with the transition to Helion, which is in the cloud, that we're going to be able to upload information on our website or on their website easier. The IT just doesn't have the manpower right now. We wanted to put all of our jackets. We digitized all of our jackets, approximately 41,000 of them. It was a big project. We cleaned all the jackets out to make sure that we didn't have stuff in there that we shouldn't or didn't need to scan. So every jacket was gone through before we digitized it. And now it's amazing. People were very nervous about not having that piece of paper and that jacket. And I'm like, oh, wow, what are we going to do? Because, you had this workflow with this jacket. And so now we just pop onto a drive and you can access it, whether you're working in, remotely or in the office. I think it's something that when we're talking about the e-permit or the enterprise permitting system, I think this would be something that CD community development might be able to benefit, where they can actually review the jackets themselves because they call us and ask us. So I'm thinking about making those available to other departments in the county as well. So that was a huge project, a great accomplishment that we were proud of. Again, cleaning up the year 3000, data and site cleanup. Those are both in our valuation system. Data cleanup, getting ready for our conversion. Internally, the jackets we hired out, internally, we were able to digitize all of our district budget documents with all the LB50s and ED50s that we get in each year. We digitized our manufactured home ownership applications and all of the documents that we felt were important. And we completed some exemption applications. We're still working on that project. So we're getting completely away from paper and having everything available online. We then, of course, migrated to the new website, created our new website, and we also added additional resource pages, farm and forest, how our taxes are calculated, exemptions, deferrals, and manufactured homes. I think I know our website is one of the top, if not the top. It seems like it goes back and forth with inmates. So assessment and inmates, things people like to look at.
Yeah.
So we keep adding, and we're gonna eventually, like I said, we'll have all the jackets out there and we will have the tax lots out there. So our community members and property owners have easy access to all of that data. Upcoming, we've been working already, providing some data to Helion. January 1 will be kicking off. So as we go through the next couple of years, we'll be doing cleanup as they require us to do. We'll complete our exemption digitizing and the tax law cleanup process so we can get them published on website and the publishing of the jackets on our website. At your service every day. So that's what the assessment office is doing.
How many full-time employees do you have right now?
Right now, we have 17.
Okay.
And I will be asking, I've asked actually for a limited duration position that I'm still waiting on for approval to help lead this project. It would be a project coordinator. I found in our department that we have a lot of projects we want to tackle and accomplish, and we just don't have someone that has the time right now to carry those out. So this position, I think, would be important going forward. And most importantly, just to start us off, this conversion process is going to be heavy, heavy, heavy lift. It's going to be a 2.5 year long process. We will be working, we'll be going live, just wild to me because we haven't done anything yet. July 1 in the tax part of it. So we'll be working in the new system for tax account information. Our property taxes are coming out of that system next October, but we'll still be doing valuation in our old system. So we'll be doing two different
Elementary type.
systems kind of thing. And so it's going to be a really crazy couple of years for us. So, and then we'll be, like I said, be reorganizing some positions as we go forward.
So you just need a limited duration position for the management of that conversion
Well,
process.
I'm asking, I only am asking the limited duration portion of it because I have to for budget purposes. I want it to be a full-time permanent position.
So the project, obviously is the conversion problem, just any data project is, right? So
Yeah.
we want to make sure that it's a bunch of so that's the purpose of the LD, and it's also the limited dollars that you all approve during the budget process. As Tammy talked about, though, there are likely other projects down the road. That would be a request that she poses within the normal budget process. So
Okay,
it has dual needs right now.
okay.
And I can also assure you that the dollars that we had planned in relation to the data system is what we covered with the conversion position. So
Mhm. Yeah, so that's budgeted and the new position is not. Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
Tammy, I think that's all been, as far as it's been.
As if I haven't seen, I don't hear, I never hear anything. It's a secret.
Thank you. That was extremely helpful. This component of our work is obscure to me, and every time I hear about it, I understand it better.
Good.
You never did talk about the ratio, and that's what.
Over the change property ratio.
Yeah, that one is another one that is very obscure, but important. And maybe,
It is
maybe
very-
next time you update this group, you can.
Yes, I can talk about change property. It is an important piece of the whole puzzle. And I don't think this slide was on there, but you have requested this, Ann, in the other meeting. I guess it was in a management meeting. It shows it should be is it in your packet? Okay, so just so you know, that just shows the taxable value growth for each district back to 2020. So you can just see how the growth has been over the years.
It's been significant.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you.
I appreciate the PowerPoint. I'm remembering, I have nightmares about, about 5 years ago, county college, and then that's the Wayne County assessor explained to us the property tax system. And he knew quite a bit about it.
Yeah.
And didn't consider his audience.
It's hard, I know.
But I do remember just the measure 54750 and okay, this is what it is in 1997 and all the permit, so
Permanent
you
rates.
make a change today. And then it goes back to 1997 and we'll throw compression in there just for fun and It's a terrible system.
It's so fun.
You know, you think, oh, well, we'll add this service district or something and just how it flows back through the system and is exceedingly complex
Very, very, very.
and makes would anybody ever design a system like this? No.
No.
But that's what we have, so I appreciate fairly high level and it is complicated and it's that's how we operate.
It is.
It's important to our going forward, so.
And then the Department of Revenue just decides to create a rule that they tell us to do for the veterans exemptions this year. That, but guess what? Our system doesn't do that. So we had to do all those by hand, manually calculate everything. But I think they're gonna try to get that changed in this next legislative
And they
session.
were told that.
They didn't care.
Yeah. I remember
didn't care.
AOC trying to work with them.
Yep.
Oh.
Nope, it's the rule, and they wouldn't give us a year to even get our systems in place, so. That's the kind of relationship, the partnership that the Department of Revenue has with its counties assessors right now. Unfortunately,
Pretty wretched.
yeah. Yes. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Katie.
Thanks.
Okay, we will go through item 6.3. Maura is up.
We take a break.
And then we'll take a break after that. It's not going to be very long.
Okay, well, I'll just take a moment and I put this on the agenda in preceding the committees, because I thought that just given the timing of when I received it, that maybe you all may want to discuss this just as you're thinking about your positioning throughout the county. Alex Downing, the recorder for the city of Corvallis, reached out and is trying to just solidify the government comment corner programming that happens at the library every twice a month. And has in the past reached out kind of episodically, wondering if there's a commissioner that would participate. So this time she's given us the full schedule and was interested in hopefully maybe just confirming some dates where you all might be interested in participating. So and this isn't necessarily something that we have to decide today, but as we're thinking about planning for your committee positioning and things like that, just kind of getting this into the thought process and the schedule planning so that we can confirm some dates, get those on the calendar in a timely manner.
I think I participated twice last year.
Yeah, you did. Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, the current schedule for this, I was just at the leadership planning meeting where we talked about this for Corvallis. The current plan is 2 Saturdays a month, but they're always willing to, that's just the slots they have. They're willing to put in additional slots on Saturdays. Typically aligns with the farmers market in downtown Corvallis, so you can go there or people go. I did it once and I had about 6 people over the course of 2 hours, just one at a time. They've invited school board members, the Corvallis School Board, county, city councilors, and they're looking to step up and solidify the program going forward. So as an incoming commissioner, I'm going to be interested. I didn't speak at that meeting because I knew I'd talk about it here. So I'll be interested in signing up for a few slots.
Okay, and I can certainly distribute this, or if you want to talk about it in your committee discussion, but I just kind of wanted to get it into the mix as we try to forward plan.
I think it makes sense for each of the commissioners to work with Mariah with those dates and move forward. And if none of those dates work, then as Gabe suggested, we can ask Alex about adding a Saturday here or there in order to fit in. Yeah.
And it's one elected at a time.
Typically, some of the new counselors are going to pair up with returning counselors and, they can pair up, but it's typically just been one person at a time.
And in terms of constituents, I've probably spoken to 2 to 4 people for my 2-hour stints, but people are very grateful. And sometimes they just need someone to talk to.
So I'll just say, I mean, it's something that hypothetically I really would like to do. I found it challenging to actually be able to actually do it because of my schedule with having kids and all of that. And just the fact that I already work probably 1 to 2 Saturdays a month already for other, community events. So I will try my best to sign up for one, but it is pretty difficult for me.
And, same here, I've maybe participated, I've at least attended and it seems pretty light as far as attendance, and I've got a bit of a drive to make sense. But I like the idea of being available. That's why I was asking about, is it just one at a time? I'm wondering if you have a school board member and a commissioner, or beef it up a little bit so that you might get more interest.
Yeah, I don't think they're opposed to that. I think it's just typically been signing up for one. And if I'm sure that if you asked, can I pair up with somebody, or would that make more sense? Alex is very amenable to making it work. So.
Yeah, she's been great to work with.
But I did participate in a couple in Philomath at the coffee shop, and a couple school board members and myself. And, still pretty light as far as attendance. It is a good idea. Supported, at least in theory.
And would your preference be then to potentially be paired up with another official?
At least consider that.
Okay.
And just, because if you're talking about a couple, 2, 3 people in 2 hours, is that good use of people's time? But then you get to check the box of, while I was there, and you had your opportunity, and
I think the more reliably we're there, the more likely we are to get people to come. There's usually something else to do.
It's a library. There's a lot of things there.
Always got a book or a phone or, so yeah, it has not been an issue, but with the drive, I certainly understand. Yeah, I think that having Mariah work with each one of the commissioners would be the best way to go.
Okay, great, we'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks.
And now we will take a 5-minute break and return to item 6.4.
How long is the 5-minute break?
4.5.
7 minutes. 4. 4, okay, 4.
I would tell them.
Okay, we are back to business. With discussion of commissioners' committee assignments, and I am going to sit back and let y'all divvy things up. And provide information and input as needed in terms of the time considerations or relational perspectives or whatever else may be relevant. But in the past, what we've done is gone through these one by one. So the process is wide open for you all to figure out which role you want to start with. I suppose it makes sense to start with my committees and have you all discuss what you want to pick up or what Gabe wants to just inherit and go from there. And historically, Maura or Mariah have taken really good notes in order to keep track of this, but it also is probably helpful if you make notes on your own hard copy, just so that we don't move too fast for her to keep up.
All right, Pat, what should we dump on him?
Wait, what?
Let Gabe, why don't you just let Gabe go through and indicate what he's interested in? And
Yeah, I
that
was
could
gonna
help.
offer, if I may, if we're starting with yours, if I could just
Mhm.
kind of go through. Awesome. Well, I have signed up, I'm just gonna kind of go down the sheet as it is here. I signed up to attend or to at least get emails from almost all of the AOC committees. After speaking with commissioners, I understand there's kind of been a delegation process on who handles which AOC committee, but people show up anyways and, you know, whatever. So
The steering committees are wide open.
Yeah.
I mean, they're gatekeepers. As far as being a member of that committee, if you show up that day, you're a member.
Yeah, so if anybody had, so if the other commissioners have any preferences for which ones are not current, like we don't have someone actively watching, but we feel like we should watch as a board, I'd be happy to attend those ones regularly, et cetera. But right now I'm very focused on the, well, I'm interested in oh geez. Trying to remember the actual names of it was the like. Well,
Governance and revenue is not on my list, but that's one that I attended regularly.
yeah, that's the one.
I found it very helpful, and it's now governance, revenue, and veterans. It's a long kind of laundry
Yes.
list.
And was that the one that, so Gabe and I had a little bit of conversation about this, and there was one that I went, okay, governance and revenue.
Mhm.
I went, oh, I didn't realize that I forgot.
I've been
At some
attending it
point that it
regularly,
was added
so.
to mine, so if Gabe, if you're interested in being the primary point person to attend that, that's okay with me.
I would be happy.
The probably pre-COVID, you were limited, so on Mondays. Forest Trust Land started at 7 in the morning. And there was upstairs and downstairs and you physically couldn't do
Everything, yeah.
Mhm.
and then COVID and they figured out, at first, even virtually, they had the same format and then figured out, we don't have to do everything on third Monday or whatever it was, because we're meeting virtually and now it's usually meeting in person with a virtual option.
Yeah. And the meetings that occur on that AOC Monday rotate. So sometimes it might be public safety and sometimes it's natural resources, but there are 2 meetings in person and then the others take place virtually.
And then like Monday afternoon is the legislative committee and
And the board.
full board.
Mhm.
but the steering committees, like say, move around. And it's possible to, pop in and out. There's especially with the legislative session, there may be a particular bill that's in this committee that, we should be, paying attention to.
And attendance, in person is always stronger during session.
Oh, yeah.
So the, I've found it quite possible to participate effectively remotely. You can still be quite engaged. They do a good job managing that.
I did actually have an opportunity to talk with Representative Nos on Saturday, and I mentioned the bill that they were pitching to Representative Gomberg because he's the sponsor of it, and we chatted about it briefly, and I told him that I'd probably see him sometime during the session. So I'm planning on being in Salem and lobbying as well. So next on the list here is City of Albany liaison, and I'm happy to continue that, especially with my history as an employee there. I know the staff and all of the electeds very well.
Yeah.
So, I'd be happy to keep that if that's all right with everyone.
Good idea.
Yep.
I've already got Philomath, Monroe and Adair Village, so.
And this brings up something I noted, which was that City of Corvallis wasn't on here at all. And my understanding is that it's kind of been a rotating thing in the past. I would be happy if we want to make it an official liaison. I'd be happy to do it. I think Mayor Charles Mon would be interested in working with me on Corvallis related issues. So I would actually not just be happy, I would ask that we solidify that and have it in here, because I feel like if it is a rotating thing, it makes it a little more amorphous on whose responsibility it is to have those meetings with the mayor. And of course, we can all meet with Charles. He's happy to do that if he has the time. But I think that it would be helpful to have that.
We also have a city, I'm sorry, Sam, the city leadership
Yeah,
position.
the whoever's chair does tend to meet with the mayor to put the agenda together for the leadership meetings
Yes.
between Corvallis and the county. So it doesn't hurt to have more than one point of contact for sure.
Mhm.
And I think that in terms of City of Corvallis liaison, initially Nancy did most of it because like you, she came from city council and then we just backed off a bit, although you still attend more city council meetings than either Pat or I do. I attend it depending on issue and agenda, but yeah, not regularly. So having a liaison is a good idea.
Sort of in consideration for a general city liaison in terms of, because we got Corvallis, we talked about Corvallis and Albany, but we have Alcee Monroe.
Oh, we have them all divvied out.
They are.
We don't have the unincorporated areas divvied out though, just.
Yeah, although LC was definitely the primary fire.
So each of you have
Yeah.
a city.
Mhm.
some
Yeah.
responsibility.
I've got three.
Yeah, Nancy has the other municipality.
So I would just say that, yes, so I could envision it as you go to the meetings when you can, kind of keep tabs that way, try to have good relationships with the counselors.
Mhm.
And then whoever is the chair still does the, formal leadership
Yes.
quarterly meetings.
And
And-
report back to the rest of us. what,
Yeah.
Highlights.
Yeah, I'm not trying to shove myself into the leadership
Sure.
role, but just as a liaison to the city, I
Yeah.
think that it would be,
To keep an eye on agendas, yeah.
yes.
I meet with Charles just because I did when I was chair and I just didn't ever go away with it, so.
Yeah.
We can all still do that if we want to.
Yes, yeah, and I plan on meeting with Christopher and other mayors regularly, so that you cover, so that's, I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes here.
It'd be great if we could also, though, if we brought it back to goal setting, because we do quarterly City of Corvallis leadership meetings. So the chair, because of how you have to communicate that this would be the right venue to discuss what should go on the agenda for the next meeting. Because
Yes.
the chair comes up with the agenda, not the county administrator, so wanna. let me-
Chair in consultation with county.
Yes, in consultation, so. So we make sure we're all on the same.
So for instance, the last leadership meeting we had with the City of Corvallis, I met with Charles. And we talked about issues, and each of us checked with our administrators, the acting in case of the city and put together the agenda. But it would be helpful if you're serving as liaison with City of Corvallis to discuss that potential agenda here before that meeting.
Oh, yeah, I'm not gonna do serial
the
meeting
chair.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all, that's all she's saying.
Okay. So, and then CSC is an everybody thing.
Yep.
So that's just,
Except for the executive committee, and I'm on the executive committee, and
Okay.
so someone from Benton County will need to step into that role. And it's, I've been on the executive committee there for about 6 years. It is it's another meeting because it typically it varies. The schedule really is variable. The executive committee meets when in months when the board does not, and the on the executive committee, the roles are rotated, so you will be chair of the CSC board at some point or another if you're on the executive committee. And that involves a lot of paperwork, which is made so much simpler with DocuSign. But in the old days, it was a challenging process with all wet signatures, and it was very hard for CSC.
I'm willing, that's one of the type of things where I'm willing to do it, but I'm also brand new. And so I don't want to come in and put myself on an executive committee of something if there's someone here who feels strongly about that. But that's I'd be definitely willing to step into that role if that's agreeable.
I'm on the COG side of.
Yeah.
This, the executive committee, so
Don't need both.
I think that would be fine. The other thing that is going on is there's a slow integration of COG and CSC. Kind of major step recently, Ryan vote, ED, the COG is now, I think, the overall ED.
Okay. Yeah.
Both agencies, prior to that, IT and HR functions were integrated. So it's a thoughtful, slow process, but part of the appeal is same 3 counties, similar, not the same, but similar programs. And apparently 30 years ago, they were one agency, for whatever reason, split. So anyway, I think it'd be fine if, I mean, at some point, somebody has to be new in that position, so. Welcome.
Nancy?
Yeah, I'm to go either way. I already have a pretty full portfolio here and pretty full schedules that I'm gonna be chair next year, so. I mean, do we need to decide today or can we put a couple things to be determined or?
It's there's a meeting this week of CSC, and then there will probably be another governing board or exec committee meeting coming up. I don't know. You can wait. I think the last time Lincoln County had a transition, they didn't decide for months, but that was not helpful for CSC.
Sure, yeah.
Or actually it was Lynn.
Well, yeah, park this one and.
Yeah,
go through the rest
Yeah,
of
we
the
can come
list.
back to it, yeah. either-
It was one of my, I became very engaged with CSC. That was one of the more rewarding service roles that I've had, although they're facing some rocky times right now.
Right.
All right, so I put a TBD next to that. Is that what you were? Okay. Community Health Centers Board of Directors Liaison. I'm not 100% sure what this one was, so.
That one is we have community health centers
Yeah.
of Benton and Lynn counties. It has its own board under federal law for a federally qualified health center. The majority of those board members must be patients of the clinics. And then we have a board of Commissioners liaison to that board. And there is, as with the Fair Board, a memorandum of agreement about how the Board of Commissioners operates with the board for the community health centers. We are not, it's not typical for a federally qualified health center to be within a county government or a local government. Although there are several here in Oregon that are. And so that dual management is important. So as liaison, I attend, I would say 95% of their board meetings. Just am able to provide a broader context for that board sometimes about issues that they're considering. And then when necessary, bring those issues back to the Board of Commissioners. It's pretty functional board at this point.
Right, and you have a non-voting.
Non-voting member. That meeting, I mean, that board meets at the same time as the Fair Board and at the same time as Adair Village and Monroe City Councils. So
Okay.
it's yours unless someone else is jumping for it.
No.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so for context for that, I did have a conversation with Bruce Butler yesterday about IHN CCO, and I think that there's, you had both, and I think you're
Yeah.
just mentioning you shared things, and I'm assuming part of that overlap was
Yes.
between those two things.
Yes.
And he invited me to be the county representation on IHN CCO board going forward, and I said, great. So I think that having both of those things would benefit, especially if, Nancy's at other people's or watching other people's council meetings at the time, and and that kind of stuff. So
It's very helpful because you, at that table for the Community Health Centers Board, you also will build a stronger relationship with Lacey Molell, who's the Executive Director of the Health Centers, and can help advocate for the CHC at the IHN CCO board to some degree. What I usually just do is remind the IHN folks that the federally qualified health centers are out there, and sometimes they perform better than the other contractors that IHN has, and maybe learn from us and keep people in the discussion. It's been useful.
right. So I just put a check mark next to that. So yeah, okay. I had so this one, Housing Alliance Development, Land Use and Preservation Work Group. I spoke briefly with Commissioner Wise about this, and she kind of told me a little bit of the history behind this one, but I'm still a little fuzzy about what this one's is and what the commitment to that is.
I have not regularly attended the Housing Alliance Development, Land Use and Preservation work group. I have attended, there are 3 Housing Alliance subcommittees. I have attended they're all on my calendar. I have attended what I can, when I can. Sometimes they're very interesting. We always get the agenda in advance, so I can pick and choose whether I want to attend.
Mhm.
So to me, it was helpful at least to be on the Housing Alliance mailing list so that I could choose to participate. We are a member. I think we have to renew coming up. I just forwarded that information on to April Holland and Health. The Health Department is kind of the steward of the membership because our Coordinated Homelessness Response Office are the folks that watch these issues most carefully. And what we initially tried to do is divvy up the 3 committees between one of us or 2 of us and staff, so that we just covered all of the topics. It would probably be worthwhile in this case to go back to Rebecca Taylor and Julie Arena and find out which committees they're attending and, how we want to divide and conquer if we want to cover the housing issues fully.
Yeah, because mine is different. Mine's the homeless and tenant protection work group, which I honestly have not really been able to attend. And the days changed, the days and times changed.
Yeah.
So.
So this needs to be updated. So it's probably a TBD.
Yeah, I'm unsure. Actually, follow-up question on this. What does this cover? What area geographically does this cover? Is it, so this is a state, this is a state work group?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's-
Housing Alliance is a statewide, God, there's a statewide group that covers the majority of the housing.
They're a nonprofit and they are an alliance of groups like Corvallis Housing First and Unity Shelter that all across the state.
Okay,
And a lot of municipal and county folks that focus on housing that put together every year a legislative agenda and then lobby that agenda in the legislature. And they also, very carefully watch the regulatory policy development and, use of funds around housing issues, but mostly it's a legislative focus. So it's interesting. I always, even just looking at the agendas, it's interesting to know what's going on. I scanned their legislative priorities last week, and just interesting to see what they're focused on. It tends to be a little more dominated by big city, big county interests. I don't always find that it's meshing with ours, but it's nice to be able to provide input to them about what doesn't fit for a county like us, because that way they hear it from us before they hear it from legislators.
yeah, so I'm interested in hearing more about that in meeting with, you were saying Julie goes to some of these type of things.
And Rebecca Taylor.
Okay, and I just learning about where the best place to plug in would be, because it is also doesn't seem like a thing that, it says appointed by and it's blank, so it's not a thing that.
It's housing wise, that's not an appointed one.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is like, that's something just attending,
Yeah.
it's not something we have to decide to.
No.
Yeah, it's not something we have to, it's just something that they're commissioners have had interest in and
Yeah.
can provide some
Yeah.
value but yeah, so that one, so what I'm hearing is TBD and having a conversation with Rebecca Taylor and or Julia Arena.
I think the next
To-
time that the Coordinated Housing Response Office reports to you all,
They just canceled the meeting, right?
For
Just-
Christmas, right, for the
yeah.
holidays?
So it's gonna be January.
yeah,
That's okay,
yeah.
I think. And
Yeah.
then, so Zane, you said there's three, so you have the Development, Land Use and Preservation Work Group. One on mine is the Housing and Tenants.
And I don't remember what the third one is.
Okay,
And they may have reorganized and they may have two, I don't know.
Okay.
There is a new staff person for this work group. It's not the same people anymore. So I have not updated this sheet, and I will get that updated information so that,
okay. And it might be worth having a conversation with that person to see like
Mhm.
if it would be helpful to have some of us attend or.
well, I know it's helpful to them. They really appreciate the perspectives. And if we are, a dues paying member, we have one vote. And so when it comes to things like the legislative priorities, staff, for instance, asked for our perspectives on what the legislative priorities were. We didn't get back to them.
Mm.
So it's helpful to have someone engage.
Okay.
So that we have a voice. They can, choose their own priorities, but they prefer to know what.
Sure. Seat at the table.
Mhm.
Right, I have that as TBD. IHMCCO, I just mentioned, and then there's a bunch of things that come along with it that Bruce said he might try and rope me into.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's appointed by their board anyways, so
Yep.
yeah.
And is that just something special that you did or that's we have to have a Board of Commissioners person?
HNCCO is their appointment.
Yeah, so what he told me was that they have one commissioner from each county, but it's not a requirement. It's how they've just chosen to govern is to have one commissioner from each.
And you'll find that there are other counties that are furious because their CCO won't allow commissioner members. So I think it's something that I really cherish in
Yeah.
that sense.
Mhm.
It's definitely relevant to what we do. Yeah.
Okay, so we will wait for them to say.
No, they have said, they've already invited Gabe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he and I had a conversation and he invited me and he's gonna go through the process of making that happen.
Yeah, the board just has to vote on it and they're not going to vote against it, so. And yeah, there are, there's the Regional Planning Council, there are the Audit and Compliance Committee, there's this Intercommunity Health Research Institute Governance Committee. And I didn't start out going to all of those, but got gradually added to these different lists over time. The Audit and Compliance Committee was the the most significant role.
Yeah, that's what in our conversation, he implied that he probably plugged me in there.
Yeah, It's
sooner.
needed.
Okay. Um. This next one, mental health, addictions, developmental diversity advisory committee, who is, I guess, what's the jurisdiction? Is this an internal committee?
Internal.
Okay,
And it's not a mandatory thing. The membership of the mental health, we call it MADAC,
Hmm.
Mental Health Addictions Developmental Diversity and Advisory Committee, asked for a commissioner liaison. That's true for most of the advisory committees that our advisory committees that one of us attends, is that the membership is interested in having a commissioner perspective. It's not the most well-organized of our advisory committees. It has too large an area to cover. And there's just a bylaws amendment to try to create subcommittees. So that they would meet as mental health, addictions, and developmental diversity, the three different topic areas, subcommittees. 2 months, and then convene as a group on the third month,
Mhm.
on a quarterly basis. But I don't think frankly that they have staff capacity to do that right effectively right now. And it's a topic that, needs further attention. I would say that those advisory committee members are a little bit frustrated. There's a lot more that they could be providing perspective on. Blaine County has a really effective committee. But here I'm surprised that people continue to attend as regularly as they do. They're passionate.
Mhm.
So that's very candid perspective.
Yeah.
Passionate and frustrated.
Passionate and a little bit frustrated. Yes, attendance has definitely dropped off a bit. We had to cancel the last meeting because of the strike. And yeah, it's been challenging.
So that sounds like something I should look into and speak with Damien about and
Yes,
chat. Okay.
yes, Damien, and you might also want to talk to Jasper Smith in developmental diversity. Probably get slightly different perspectives, but it's yeah.
Right. The next set was the Youth Development Council, which I just crossed off. That's a governor's appointment.
Yep.
And Commissioner Ojero told me that Jeff Justison, who from the new guy from Wasco County is probably going to get that. And
Most likely.
yeah, and he's a great guy. He was the gentleman who came up and spoke with us at AOC. He worked at Norcor.
He's our juvenile department director.
Yeah, so he's taken that and has a lot of
No, not
experience. in
juvenile
that.
department director, but he was the
Juvenile side.
detention,
Yeah.
juvenile detention director, because Molly Rogers is the juvenile department director. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's 4 things I just crossed off. WCJC, I'm happy to continue with WCJC. I understand they're going through changes in how their meetings are structured and attendance or and voting membership, et cetera. But I'm happy to go through that, to still go to that. And keep that appointment.
The subcommittee on mental health, law enforcement, and crisis response is no longer meeting. And the WCJC Lay Council is going away with the bylaws amendment if they're approved in January. So that will be somewhat simplified, but as the attendee, you would be on the executive committee under the new bylaws.
So I'm sorry, that's the WCJC full council or is it lay council?
The Lay Council is going away under the new bylaws.
That's-
But there is an executive committee meeting that also occurs on a monthly basis and is responsible for agenda planning and coordination.
So he'd be on the full council and the executive committee. And then should we remove the law enforcement and crisis
Yep.
response?
Yep.
Or, okay.
Yep,
And
I
then if-
would.
Okay. Let's cross that one off.
Yep.
Great. I have a few more things to bring up. Currently,
There's also that's it.
oh, there's a back page.
That's all the external stuff anyway. That doesn't really matter.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of.
I was like, that's the end of what I remember going through. That's fine. Okay.
The ones on the back are, these are what the individual comes to the group.
Oh, the things that you're already doing that you're bringing to.
Or that we just take on because we're interested in them.
Okay. First thing, Commissioner Odro is the current voting, county voting member of the Corvallis Urban Renewal District.
Mhm.
As city councilor for the last 4 years.
That's right, it's
you know,
not on here.
I see Commissioner
I
Wise.
was good. I was on the Urban Renewal Council and the advisory.
I appreciate that. I would like to continue and hold that position as the urban renewal voting member. I have spoken with staff and with the Corvallis mayor, and I think that it would be a good fit for me to continue as a voting member of that, as the county's liaison to that, or to that board. And so I'll put that out there. I would like to do that. And I think that, I appreciate that you were a founding member of it, you were there when it was founded, and but I've been there for the last 4 years, and so it's something I'd like to continue on. And same for the Corvallis City Legislative Committee. That's just a small committee that they have, and Commissioner Malone's attended a few of those meetings. I noticed it wasn't on the list. That was my first introduction into local government, was being the volunteer aide for that committee 6 years ago or something like that. And I became a voting member, and then I was chair for the last 2 years. So they have asked that I continue, like, that if Commissioner Malone is amenable to it, that I take that spot and attend those meetings.
I think it'd be highly useful to have a regular attendee, because we have a very clear legislative agenda and we work it well, but it is so wonderful to find, at least a couple of issues where we could work together. I think it would make us more effective overall.
I think my participation was Mayor Biff thought I had some expertise to share with the group when it got started. So I think it would be entirely appropriate for you to continue with that. My participation is faded. So that makes sense.
Okay.
I'm fine to be doing legislative committee. I'll say let's do TBD for the urban renewal.
Okay.
And if there is another TIF district created, then of course there would be a potential, another opportunity, but that might not come up for several years if the downtown TIF is created.
Mhm.
So.
And the last thing is, if Commissioner Wise is no longer interested in historic resources, that's something that I took minutes for the Corvallis HRC for years, and then was their liaison for 2 years. So I've got a good background in historical resources and land use related to that. If you want to keep it, great. I'm just offering that that's something I have knowledge in.
We talked about that a little bit. I do like it. It's just, I tend to have a lot of scheduling. I have scheduling conflicts every Wednesday.
Mhm.
And so I just had a challenging time making it. If it's once a month and you miss that one meeting, then I don't see him for a while. So I'm good if you take that over.
Okay.
And then there's been several changes to I don't know if we want to go through all those today too.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's the goal.
So starting back at the top. So if we can talk about the Association of Oregon Counties, the steering committees. So help me out. There's the governance, revenue, and veterans. There's the natural resources, health and human services,
Public safety.
public safety, and then transportation, community development.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that one is now including solid waste, I think.
Plus public safety and solid waste. Okay.
No, not
No.
public safety, land use,
Oh, okay.
community development, transportation.
That makes more
Solid
sense.
waste.
Okay. Well, this year at AOC, I was appointed and sworn in as a co-chair for the Transportation and Community Development Steering Committee.
Congratulations.
So,
Mhm.
I don't know if anyone else wants to come to that, that's fine, but I will be there co-chairing. So I know, Pat, you have historically gone to that and have.
I've gone occasionally.
Okay. Well, you can
I-
still, it's a public meeting, you can still come there, right, if you want to.
Yep, anyone can, oh, I could.
He's like,
No. I do not think so.
I found that committee to be useful, especially I do a lot of transportation work, and so it fits in. And probably continue that.
Okay, and so I guess if staff wants to add that to both mine and Commissioner Malone's. And that I got appointed because of the community development portion of it, not because of the transportation.
Mhm.
part. It was what I
Mhm.
understand, so.
Yeah. Who's your co-chair?
Commissioner. I know,
What kind of,
Umatilla County Commissioner Dan Doran.
yeah,
Yep,
he does a lot of transportation.
that's okay. That was my understanding. So I think the three of us kind of all did natural resources. I mean, I know it was on mine. I went as I could. Pat, I know you'd like to attend that one.
I found that to not be very productive.
I rarely attended. The first 2 years I was in office, I attended very regularly. And then I became so involved with health and human services and public safety and governance and revenue that I stopped going.
Okay,
There tends to be a rural county kind of bias and themes. You know, it. I think Annabelle filled that role also of being a more liberal voice on a very conservative group. And
so I'm happy to continue going on and
Mhm.
watching,
yeah,
and getting cut off when I do try to make a.
you know, some of the issues that they work on, wolf predation, and I mean, there are topics that really don't apply to us. And so, anyway,
But
Okay.
water resources, on the other hand, falls in that
Yeah.
bucket. And when I see water resources topics on the agenda, that's when I tend to go.
Okay,
So, it's,
so staff can keep that one on mine, then it sounds like. And Gabe, you already said you wanted the governance, revenue, veterans.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so then that leaves health and human services and then public safety.
and if you're doing the
Yep.
health stuff, you should probably, or both of those with WCJC.
Yep. I can commit to going to those, probably. Again, this is, yeah, so obviously I don't have what a monthly calendar is gonna look like, and this isn't how I look at it well, so those definitely align with the other things that we've already checked off the box for me, so I can commit to wanting to go to those.
Dates shift too, because of
Okay.
the way that they're structured now, and there's always a remote option. So again, and you get the agendas well enough in advance that you can pick and choose.
Yeah, it is a commitment and it's reading ahead of time. Assuming you want to be
Sometimes.
prepared. You don't have to do the reading, I guess.
I can just show up, yeah.
Yeah. And they're about an hour and a half
Yeah.
to 2 hours, depending on, yeah. So I mean,
2 hours.
2 hours. Sometimes they,
It depends.
yeah,
Well, that's the block, and
Yeah.
it depends what the agenda.
yeah.
Okay.
So do you want to TBD that for now?
I would like, I mean,
I would go and then decide.
yes, so I TBD with a yes to start
Trial,
with.
yes.
Yeah, a trial.
There we go.
To be-
Limited duration.
Okay.
That's where you build relationships with our commissioners. If you
Yeah.
want to, if you have any aspirations of any kind of a role within AOC,
Mhm.
that's where to start.
Or even just getting along with people. And getting those hugs we were talking about at the conference, right?
We're talking about health and human services.
Yeah.
As a.
And public safety,
Yeah.
both health and human services and public safety.
I mean, I could be interested in the public safety, but again, with being the co-chair, that also comes with additional.
Sometimes, yeah, it
responsibilities,
does.
In other meetings, so.
And sometimes the Health and Human Services and the Public Safety meet jointly, which also helps. Because there's a lot of overlapping issue areas between those two. Great. Okay, back to you, Nancy.
City of Adair Village Liaison, I'm happy to keep that going. CSC, yes, Rouse Benton County Economic Development Coalition, happy to continue doing that.
Oh, it still says Heather Stevenson, Kate Borsch.
Oh, yeah, so. Yeah. Yeah. A bunch of mine have changed contacts.
Right, like Angel Williams is also.
Yeah.
We'll get all that, get updated.
Okay, thank you. The Historic Courthouse Advisory Committee has concluded their work, so we can cross that off. We said Historic Resources Commission can move over to Gabe. For now, I'm fine keeping the Hope Board and the Executive Committee.
Yep.
The Housing Alliance Homeless and Tenant Protection Group, we already talked about that, TBD conversations. I'm happy to keep the Corvallis Chamber of Commerce Board. I'm happy to keep Corvallis Benton Library Advisory Board. Happy to continue on with the role of Monroe Liaison.
Whoever that city manager will be.
Yeah.
Oh,
I have a
when
good,
did that happen?
well, he's still there, I think.
Yeah, but he's retiring.
Okay.
He's trying to like do a process, like
Okay.
kind of.
It's like, what? That was abrupt.
Year, he's got
Okay.
like a year out, so anytime in between now and then, I think.
Okay.
The Oregon Cascade West Council of Governments, Comprehensive Economic Development Strategies, the SEDS. Yes, I will continue doing that. The CWED, I'm happy to keep doing that. I am also on the executive committee now, so if we could add the COG Economic Development District Executive Committee onto there as well. And then FTLAC. So historically, I've been the commissioner to try to like attend their meetings. Not a voting member. It can be contentious.
It goes,
Unless someone really wants it, I can continue, but if someone really wants it, I'm happy to. Okay.
I started out going to the meetings and I forget what, 7 o'clock in the morning in Salem and.
On a Friday.
No. Monday.
Okay, they're on Fridays now.
It's a Monday and I think they only had an hour. The whole time was spent on defining a word. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now it's all the HCP, the Habitat.
Yeah.
Conservation Plan, and there's a lot of unhappiness from most of the forest trustland counties, and so it's a lot of the same hard feelings being rehashed.
Yep.
Which is understandable. Oh, so which also reminds me, so the Council of Forest Trustland Counties through AOC, I am
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, they kind of go together.
Yeah, but maybe we want to call it out separately, because I am a voting member of the CFTLAC,
Uh-huh.
but not the FTLAC.
PMC is on page 1.
Yeah, is it? Okay. I already talked about
Yeah.
that.
No, you just skipped over it.
So yes, I will keep that one.
Good, thank you.
I mean, unless someone else really wants to get up at 7 or, you know, 7 AM.
You're doing a great job.
And then, let's see, City of Philomath Liaison, happy to continue that. Philomath Chamber of Commerce, happy to continue that. So I'm no longer like an affiliated South Valley Regional Solutions Advisory Committee liaison.
Who is the
No,
Regional
so
Solutions Advisory Committee
they,
liaison now? There's from someone at their county?
yeah,
Well, I think what we decided previously, Annabelle was a voting member for a while and then wasn't, and then you were, and then
because
not.
Kate Porsche had connected me with staff person at the time, which has changed
It's
twice.
Courtney now, yeah.
Or 3 times since then. And so,
Yeah.
and Courtney has said that I think she's more by the rules. And anyway, they did an application, a round of applications for people to apply. And I did not apply. I
Oh,
did not have
okay.
the time. And if I don't have the time to apply, I don't have the time. to
They never limit who can attend
Yeah,
those.
sure.
It's public. And I attended them the first couple of years I was in office. And I personally do not think that we make enough use of regional solutions. We could do a lot more. And so, yeah,
Depending on the calendar, consider stepping in there.
Okay, to attend the meetings and
But
Just as a-
I have no idea when they have met. I get plenty of emails, but I don't think I got them from this group.
yeah,
I'm on their mailing list and, but
But
yeah,
developing or continuing to develop a relationship with Courtney Blathers, I think she's. I mean, they had a lot of turnover, but
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think she's capable. of-
yeah,
Zane said, it's, they do things and we're not getting our shares.
that's my feeling. And I really appreciate the fact that Courtney lives in Junction City and not in Eugene or Springfield. And that makes a difference too,
Mhm.
because all of the previous people that have represented our area have lived in Lane County, and it's been a very Lane County focused entity. But the way that Regional Solutions works is that it's the county or the cities that have to bring projects to the table. And we have never taken projects to the table other than the Sustainable Materials Management Planning process. So I think and that's another topic we should talk about is the
Yep.
SSMP task force. So I think that it's very much worthwhile to try to stay involved and, use the Regional Solutions folks when we have need of them.
Well, find out, make an effort and see,
Mhm.
put effort in, and see
Yeah.
what comes out and.
If it's worth it.
Yeah.
They were very, very helpful to the Philomath Streetscapes project. And that was the kind of the major project in our area for years.
And they have some horsepower.
Yeah. Well, I think things like, the LC meeting that we had,
Yes.
they were we obviously get invited to that and have a seat at the table.
Yep.
But yeah, so Pat, you want tentatively add the South Valley Regional Solutions Advisory Committee to yours, tentative on when they meet and time.
I mean, we'll see a draft version of what we've
Yeah.
gone through today.
We can bring it back next
Yeah.
month. See how we're all settling in.
Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead.
yeah. Oh, I was just you have one more to go and then I have a couple to add to the discussion.
Okay. I'm happy to keep going on with WAMA.
The LC liaison is one thing that Rick brought up, and I became kind of the unofficial LC liaison, holding regular Governor's Corner meetings out there, convening a commissioner from Lincoln County, as well as the two electeds, Dick Anderson and David Gomberg, to come to those meetings. They were very well received. We may be a little bit past the point when we need that kind of organizing because the relationships have organically built so much better between the local community and their state electeds. But it helps to have a point person for those LC relationships. And so, Pat, I know you've also been out there for a bit, but I think we should definitely have a commissioner that is point person to work with staff on those LC relationships.
I've got enough continuing conversations and that it could be appropriate if I did that one.
I think it would, so from my point of view, I think it'd be great if all of us maybe rotated through or I think I've built several relationships out there and If we have one person who's like the designated liaison, then it can kind of make it hard for other commissioners that want to go out and do events too.
I don't think it makes it
Well, that actually was
necessarily.
my experience. That's
Okay.
why I'm sharing it.
Okay, I went out the last couple of Governor's Corner events. I asked if anyone else wanted to do it and I got a 0. So I was a little bit unsure about that. And it involved, I've gotten a lot of mail and it was a really heavy lift for a little while. It's not anymore. Now that there is the Community Advisory Committee formed out there and they are more organized on their side. It has become a much easier liaison role because there's a lot of staff relationship with folks out in the LC community. So it's changed. I think that you're right. It's worthwhile for all of us, for everyone to be engaged because of the fact that the issues vary. And when it's a land use issue, it makes sense for you to be engaged. When it's a public safety or a health services relationship, it would make sense for Gabe to be engaged, Pat for transportation. But it's also helpful, just like with the liaison role with the city of Corvallis, to have one person that kind of is the point person, because that way not all of you get overwhelmed with things
Sure.
all the time. And that point person can then direct things to whoever's most relevant.
Well,
So I think that that's the kind of thing you all need to consider.
and making sure we are speaking with one
Yep.
voice.
Yep.
And that's currently the problem with LC is there are different voices and in fact, at the Monroe Clinic last week, Rep. Gomberg talked about getting different people, you should do this, no, yeah, you should, and just he'd love to help, but it's gotta be a more coordinated,
Yeah.
Prioritized ask.
I think that that's LC's problem because they don't have a local government. It's very difficult for them to come to a coherent set of prioritized issues.
That's kind of what I was thinking along those same lines as, since there's no one entity that's the specific leadership body. Makes it hard. Who is the liaising on to? Is it the community action?
The Community Advisory
Yeah.
Council for this
Or
land use
is it
related,
the you know,
LC Community,
yes, the Ed
effort
Provost
or-
and or is it
Ace.
through the
Mhm.
school ACE? Yeah, Sarah
Mhm.
Cash and some of
No,
those over.
that's a different one.
That's what I'm
not-
saying.
That's ACAC. And
Yeah, so my point is
LC
there's multiple
Community
different
Advisory
ones. So
Committee.
who are you? If we have
Well-
one liaison, how do we?
I think it still makes sense to have one person, one point person for all of those folks to talk to as a funnel. Because otherwise we do get those multiple mixed messages. And there are, again, a lot of staff points of contact. So that person who is the primary liaison. Also, we were having regular huddles amongst staff that were dealing with LC, and Rick and Lindsay were putting together great periodic updates of all the point of contacts and all of the projects that are going on. They're related to LC. That's very helpful. So I think that there's a need for that coordination, even though there are multiple, or because there are multiple bodies. And then, yes, I think we should each be engaged on the issues as needed. So. Pat, if you want to be the point person. Makes sense, but
Yeah, I would be glad to do that. I feel like I've paid attention to LC for decades and I was always impressed with Mary Ann Carter and starting the clinic. So I'm familiar with small communities and if 2 or 3 people get organized, you can get things done and then 1 or 2 of those people go away, the effort falls off and it's a challenge. And I think the reason they are not incorporated is enough people there don't want
government.
yeah. So, and that's too bad because there's enough people and projects to, it would be nice if there was overarching organization instead of trying to sort through who really speaks for the community.
So I want to say that I really appreciate Commissioner Weiss's perspective that it's a different animal to tackle when it's not a municipal government and you don't have a council to go to or mayor to meet with. I think that having one person responsible for all of the issues of a region feels to me slightly different than what we've asked for our city liaisons to do, because they're liaising with the local government as opposed to answering all the emails from, like, I hope to goodness I'm not answering all the Corvallis constituents' emails. So that's like, I like, that's not what I wanted to sign up to do.
That's a separate issue.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so I understand that, like, I think all three commissioners should be engaged with the community of Alsea. I think that what was it, the Community Advisory Committee? I think it would make sense to have a commissioner liaison who's the point person for that committee, for the school district and those kind of things, for the governmental or quasi-governmental entities of Alsea, similar to what we have for our cities. So that's, I don't envision that as, like Commissioner Ochoa said, there's going to be things that this body is going to have to decide that one commissioner can't speak with just one voice on, because we're going to all have to decide a land use decision or something like that. So,
Or legislative priority.
yeah, which is, I'm sure, very frustrating for the residents there that they don't get to set their legislative priorities because they don't have a body that can do that. They can just recommend to us. So I think that it would make sense to have one point person to those things, but I don't want that to be construed as the person who takes care of Alsea and is responsible for
Yeah.
Alsea.
Absolutely.
Is that?
Yeah, that helps. I'll just say, I mean, I really love the Alsea area. I do spend time out there, have some ideas. But I'm happy I already have enough city liaisons. So I'm happy to just kind of, as long as you don't feel like I'm stepping on your toes by being out there, having relationships and stuff, then I'm fine with that.
We all have relationships in the community and I
Yeah.
think that's just to be respected and hopefully encouraged. Yeah, but I like the way that you framed it as the relationship with the Community Advisory Council and the school district, which are elected entities. And that makes sense to have someone as a liaison.
We should ask
Those
them too,
groups.
if they are interested in that. Or if they're-
Well, they in the past have been very interested.
Or not.
The school district less so, but
Well,
it
yeah.
depends on personality. The CAC has been.
And if there's anything I can do to help through this, I've forged a pretty good relationship with folks in the community because there are so many
Yep.
different players. There's the school districts, there's CAC,
Mhm.
there's multiple nonprofit organizations, there's the health issues. So as Commissioner Osher was saying, we've tried to create a communication channel because that's been the biggest issue, is Alsea doesn't feel heard.
Yeah.
They don't feel like there's information being shared. So and again, I think it's shared. It's just sometimes we don't think about, they don't maybe get access to all. of it.
Yeah.
And so we.
And
try
there's
to
not
be
one
more
voice.
oriented.
And Rick has been our point person. I transitioned that over to Rick a few months ago because he had a finger on the pulse for what all the departments were doing out there. And it made more sense.
So I'm happy to help everybody, though. I keep all of you guys looped in on
Mhm.
those
Yep.
reports and.
Yep.
So whatever I could do to help.
And LC's had a lot of help from the governor's office as well.
Oh, yeah.
The Regional Solutions, that was a huge.
You got Courtney very much involved in both
Mhm.
Commissioner Wise and Commissioner Mullins to be out there to
Mhm.
talk about the housing and multiple issues.
Yeah.
Multiple issues.
And I know, this is probably a separate conversation, but like Commissioner Malone mentioned, Representative Gomberg mentioning that. Yeah, it's hard for him to advocate for Alsea when there's not, he said, one voice asking for stuff.
There's 10 voices.
Yeah, and so I think when they don't have a city council, their government is the county. So if in the future we can help in that. And I think that's part of our jobs.
That's what we've been trying to do for the last.
No, I
year
just
and a half. It's, you know, they have to figure out who is representing them in that conversation. And, you know, as much as Sarah Cash and, I'm forgetting her name. Naomi, thank you, Chadwick, try to do so, they don't because they are both newcomers.
Sure. Well, and also, I mean, so if we were to legislatively start a process to do something, a land use process or something, I mean, that would be us, coming from us, not necessarily them. Obviously, we wouldn't want to do that without,
That's the
input
role
from
of the
them.
Community Advisory Council.
So.
So in summary, it sounds like to me that, you know, Commissioner Wise, you were saying that you have a lot of city appointments. I have two very large cities, and so it makes sense to me
Yeah.
and you're willing. And I was thinking to myself, I'm not sure how excited Elsie would be to have me. My family grew up in Triangle Lake, which played Elsie in football. So I don't know.
Go Triangle Lake.
Yeah.
My nephews win.
Yes, yeah, yeah, so it was, but anyways,
Triangle Lake Badgers.
Triangle Lake Lakers,
Lakers, yeah.
very creative. There's a lake, we're the Lakers.
Five-man football.
Yeah, it's real, yeah, my dad still goes and runs the scoreboard at all the meetings, or at all the games, so. Yep,
They could have called themselves the Triangles.
you know, yeah.
Oblate spheroids.
Anyway, thank you for that discussion, a very robust one. The other liaison role is the Sustainable Materials Management Plan Task Force. In terms of, you know, I had a more formal seat at that table. Someone in county should have a formal seat. Perhaps we could defer that discussion for a meeting when Sean and Bailey are present. And I think and I give a chance for all of you to think and talk more about it. That is a limited duration process. It only runs through June 30th of this next year. And there, well, in this iteration, that's what we have funding for. And there will be task force meetings, probably 2 or 3 between now and then. It would be helpful to have someone at the table for those. And then there will be working group meetings, and anyone can go to those working group meetings. They're focused on the subsidiary issues that the task force will then form into a plan.
But it's fair to say some of the meetings will not be in Benton County. They may be more
Yeah.
in Salem. Is that a?
Yeah, the
fair
task force meetings are most likely going to be in Salem because they're drawing on the whole waste shed, the 13 county waste shed. The working group meetings are most likely, they could be in person, they could be virtual. I think the preference was for virtual for those. So I think that it makes sense for that to be discussed the next time Sean comes and presents.
Open hearings.
Okay. And one of the objectives is to, if there are recommendations for some specific projects or continuation of this 13 county body, to continue, that we are seeking state funds in order to be able to help with that as a region. And then there might be a longer term role, but at this point it is finite.
I just, so, sorry, are you done? Okay. On the back, we have the parking lot. And NACO Public Land, on the point of via AOP. We've got the NACO Western Interstate Region, WIR. So the WIR, I've been sort of like an unofficial liaison and go to the conference and try to keep tabs, but
It makes sense based on your state forestry, state natural resources relationships. And likewise on mine, I was a formal voting member of the NACO Justice Systems Committee.
Okay.
And that's a once a month virtual meeting, and it's mostly presentations from various federal agencies about issues or from congressional folks about policy issues. It's been very helpful just to keep up with what's going on. As a member, I also get all of the materials sent to me afterwards, so I don't attend. Still get a lot out of it. But it's been interesting to be part of the NACO legislative process as well. And those NACO committees, you have to apply to AOC, and the appointments are through AOC.
Okay.
And I think that the date for that has gone by already for this year. So it's worthwhile, though, to go to their legislative conference in the beginning of March, just to get a feel for that environment. But what that scene is, try out some of the different committees, and if you're interested, then apply through AOC when they make a call for applications next fall.
Yeah, I am scheduled to go to the national
Good.
conference.
Legislative
Yeah.
or
Uh,
the,
I don't know what
Legislative-
what's the difference.
Legislative is in March.
Yeah.
It's in DC.
DC, yes,
Okay.
that's the one. I'm like, I'm going to DC.
So then
and
there's
it's
the
a big
annual
company.
meeting, which is usually in July.
Okay,
So,
yeah, I will be there in March.
So one other commissioner can go,
Oh, I don't think it's just a budgetary issue. Anyone can go.
but don't we have to leave a commissioner behind?
I don't think we have ever formally
Yeah,
talked about that
I
because,
know you had assigned something last time because we were both traveling last time.
yeah, and I stayed home the year before. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are some counties where all three commissioners go. I think it's depends on us and our own policy and
Are we all
approach.
three already signed up? Are you
I-
signed up to go?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think it's okay. I mean, with DocuSign and, you know,
Well, the big issue last time was the property.
There's a
We were
property,
trying to
yeah.
kind of quote, we had
Oh,
that
yes,
closing
that's
date.
right.
And so we needed someone here to actually be able to close on.
Yes.
which is a very rare,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Just
So I think
usually,
everything else we could always do by
Yep.
docs.
Yep, that makes sense.
and
And
legally,
then
we're
the-
allowed to have virtual meetings, if anything comes up.
That's true.
So-
An emergency meeting
Yeah.
can be virtual and we've done that
Done
before.
it.
Yep,
The annual meeting for NACO is in Philadelphia this year. And it's in July, so it'll be much better in Philadelphia than in.
I think last year was in
Texas or
Orlando.
Yeah, last year was Orlando.
Texas the year before. I'm like, why do they keep choosing really hot places in the summer?
Yeah.
But yeah.
So Are you thinking all three?
Are you all three thinking of going in to DC and?
All three of us are signed up. for
yeah,
DC.
we're all already signed up.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So-
I'm signed up, or I'm planning on signing up for WIR, which is in May. And then I typically do not go to the annual one.
Okay,
I've been to the annual once. I find it much less useful. If you are, a really engaged member of one of the steering committees, you should be there.
Mhm.
And again, there are people there that are very interested in kind of climbing that leadership ladder at NACO. And it's not something that I was ever interested in.
Yeah.
There are a couple of commissioners here in the state that have played significant leadership roles at NACO. Martha Schrader from Clackamas is one. She has been president, I think.
okay.
And
Oh, wow.
or on the executive board. I'm not sure if she ever became president. And then Melissa Cribbins, who now works for the governor's office, was also a chair of one of their steering committees. That's a whole nother level of responsibility and stuff that has not seemed worth it to me.
Same, yeah.
Yeah,
But being on a steering committee, yes, but
in,
leadership,
in a public meeting, what I will say is that my experience with the WIR people that I met at AOC was that it would be less useful for me to attend or participate in those discussions, and that's what I'll leave it at.
Okay.
yeah, the WIR is actually, I have been to one when it was held in Bend. It can be very interesting and helpful in terms of issues, but politics are definitely very, very rural public lands focused, and it can be
Yeah.
a little challenging given your perspective.
Yeah. Nancy, have a good time.
I will. Thank you. South
It's
Dakota.
always beautiful
Oh.
places.
Cool.
No,
Well, and I don't know.
it could be.
Probably still cool.
Well, 2 years ago I was in Alaska, so.
Colder. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay, tax list. Maybe we can zip through this. I don't see a lot of big changes so far.
911, continue, AMPO, continue. AOC Board of Directors, I'm not currently on the board of directors.
But Nancy will be, right? No, you're on ledge committee for sure. I don't know if you're on
I
board.
think I am, yeah.
Mhm.
Or am I on the board of directors or am I just,
Not automatically.
it's a,
There's an at-large, the incoming chair will appoint an at-large, a couple of at-large members from underrepresented counties. And so Benton has typically ended up, with someone on the board of directors. So you may,
okay, and that's in addition to what happened at the,
yeah, as
AOC
a
meeting,
co-chair
business meeting.
of the Transportation and Community Development Solid Waste Committee, you're on the legislative
Yeah.
committee.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
Nancy, might want to note that Nancy is
AOC
is on the
legislative
AOC
committee.
legislative committee.
Yeah.
Mhm. But let's just put a question mark by that one.
AOC Ledge Committee, I think I'm still there. Membership Committee, I'm not quite sure of that.
You're still on that, you're as the backup.
Yeah.
You were voted in at the last district meeting.
Natural Resources Steering Committee, my membership will be dependent on what the issues are. I guess we can leave that on there. Transportation, CD, yes. CIP Committee, we meet quarterly. Is that correct?
That's correct.
We have an official schedule, so I'll continue with that. CSC, kind of automatically on that. Corvallis Chamber of Commerce, Government Relations, I'm not sure if that's still active or.
Okay, I was wondering about that, because so when like typically like with Corvallis, if you're on the liaison to the board, you're liaison to the government,
They changed that.
Jack, anyway, Government Affairs Committee. And so I was just thinking recently, I was like, oh, wait, I haven't been invited to those meetings.
They changed it,
Okay.
when the last, when Simon left,
Mhm,
I was both, and I had been both for 6 years.
mhm.
And then when he left and there was a new, Government Relations Committee chair, they dropped me and
Okay.
they invited Pat.
Was it Alex?
That was Stephen.
That was Stephen. And but they never told me or anything else. They just, so it was pretty weird.
There's some weird things going on, so.
Well, yeah, they're not in the best of shape.
So
There's a question mark.
Question mark, okay.
I'm not sure they're always, I think they're regular meetings.
They used to be monthly, but not anymore.
Okay. Campo, yes, Fair Board Liaison, yes. LB Loop, yes, there's a transportation theme in case you're wondering. CWAC, yes. Executive Committee, yeah, why they do that, yes. Northwest Oregon Works, the Workforce Investment Board that I was on as a business person before I was elected. Frustrated. There's a leadership. As a year ago, Popular Trade. They have a lot of federal money coming in. Traditionally, it was 3 or 4 people. Staff, now it's 7 or 8 because there's more money coming in. A basic question. Benton, Lincoln, Tillamook, Clatsop, Columbia, is the grouping, kind of.
We're the outlier.
Yeah, that's a little like a C kind of thing. That doesn't.
And maritime, we have a maritime.
It's a big water theme going on there that we're not a part of.
Just before the pandemic, I organized things and got commissioners to say, Governor, would you please look at reassigning us to the Mid-Willamette Valley Workforce Board, which is Yamhill, Polk, Marion,
I think that's it.
Okay. Which would be a reasonable fit.
And Lynn.
Oh, yeah, Lynn.
I was gonna say that.
The reason, part of the reason we're with the coastal is, the governor. These things were working so well that the, Kitsapper, said, we're gonna reorganize. And, at that time, for some reason, Lynn County didn't want anything to do with us.
Yeah.
And I think the commissioners dropped the ball and then, well, that doesn't make any sense. Anyway, that might be a,
Well, Lincoln wanted to be with the coastal and, you know, we should
Sure.
have stayed with the Valley folks. But the other argument that I heard from the governor's office back then was that, that particular workforce investment board, the coastal one, is not financially viable without Benton.
yeah,
And so we are there to support them. And that's
Well-
been a little bit of a frustration,
and we get the less out of,
least resources. Yeah.
um,
They have very high turnover in their staff.
I like being a friendly neighbor, but that seems.
A little excessive, I know. Well, you know, we haven't tried with this governor. It was Kate Brown that chose to kind of ignore the issue because
well,
COVID was happening.
I think we sent them in January or February and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
In March.
So maybe it's time to try again.
I question whether I have the energy to, I have a lot of information. Didn't get, the support I needed from the group. To continue the discussion both about the leadership of the organization and the configuration. So it's an ongoing program, significant federal dollars. I'm fairly sure Benton County is not giving any replace to what we could be getting out of this. Group.
What I'm hearing is, Gabe, it's up for grabs. And it's an interesting one because the Community Services Consortium, Lynn Benton Lincoln, actually contracts a fair bit with the Mid-Willamette Workforce Investment Board. And so, and the Community Services Consortium used to provide most of the local services to our Workforce Investment Board. And I think now is actually got one contract now with
Juvenile,
with community, the youth program.
it's one or the other.
Yeah.
I think it's you.
And so the relationships are changing a little bit and maybe it's improving, but it's hard to know.
So in response to that, what I can say is that I will do some research into what it means and what it does. And if you're looking for someone to like toot a horn or try and change which one we're a part of or how, whatever, I might be able to take that over. But that's another one that I'm like, I'm not sure I want to commit to that before I know what I'm getting into.
Sure.
Sure, so add it to the TBD.
Yeah.
Okay.
It looks like all the rest of these you are continuing with, Pat, because of the transportation theme.
Cog.
Question on COG. In notes, it says Chaz Jones, now a member of exec committee. What?
No longer.
Yeah, so are you on the executive committee of COG? Okay, and that's, okay. Trying to figure out what that is.
Almost automatic, I from the beginning, I was on the executive committee and quite sure the mechanism.
Well, I think it's because they want one person from each county and, yeah, and
Some part of me remembers that it's all the commissioners and then one from each, and one additional from each county. But for the executive, but I don't remember particularly.
It's one commissioner from each county.
Yeah,
And with our city.
yeah, and all the
And
cities.
then one.
and one person from a city.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's the vague memory that I have. But
There is an opening. Yeah, fairly sure. That would be wise for us to figure out who that should be, as far as city. Other city rep.
Well, Monroe.
If I remember, they're not an active part of COG, are they? Or, I mean, like, I don't even, I think they're a member, but I don't remember seeing Dan at any of the meetings.
This,
Yeah, it's just a resource issue.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I think that we've made it through. Maura has a question.
There was just one down there at the very bottom, Oregon, that's called the planning.
That's Pat.
And I think that's staying.
Yeah, that's transportation.
and even chair next year.
And it looks like we don't even have a say in that, because that looks like it's appointed by Campo and Ampo anyways, so, and or Campo. Okay, yeah.
I'm the Campo, rep to Alpha.
Okay.
If you want to touch on your external committees or you're pretty.
I'll do, I have attended, I got more engaged in that, that's, trying to figure out how to fund ODOT. And what we're doing for the decade. Made some recommendations on how to fund ODOT, and it's a really high powered group. And, so I'm not, I assume they'll continue, but I'm unofficial. I go to the meetings, but I'm not an official member. There's one that wasn't on here that I would like to attend, and I think it's called Forest Patrol Advisory Committee. Count.
And that one we've all been attending as we have opportunity that we have a forest deputy and a half. And they, on a quarterly basis, they have an advisory committee meeting of because there are a lot of private industrial forest landowners that fund those forest deputy positions. And I've attended those. Nancy has, Pat has.
See, I think.
And so, yeah, we don't have a formal liaison, but we all get invited. And I think it's it's not a problem if we attend. It's not our meeting.
What did you say though? What was the thing you said?
Patrol,
Patrol?
fire.
Okay, I heard skull, skull forest, which is why I had a reaction.
Oh,
and I was not.
You don't get to learn about that till you're sworn in.
Yeah,
Forest Patrol.
forest patrol.
I think that's what it's called.
Okay.
It's not quite what it's called, but it's close.
Forestry steering. Or
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all, yeah, everybody from all the boards theoretically shows up.
Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, it's hosted by the sheriff's
Yeah,
office.
Okay.
that, Starker and Thompson and
The private
Yeah.
folks pay approximately half of the cost. Probably less than that. A significant dollars.
I think it was Gibson too.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, I think that that is very productive work for today. There's quite a bit of TBD, but that's normal. And thank you all for productive discussion. If we can zip through updates, then we can
I'll zip.
adjourn.
I'll zip. Yeah. So starting with me, okay. Just some announcements, a new leadership role in Greg Munn, our new Chief Financial Officer. Greg's been with us for a couple of weeks now, and even has some new innovative ways of how he wants to present the budget next year, maybe running up to a few days of budget hearings as opposed to 2 months, which would be long days for commissioners, but I think it would also maybe be very productive. And really excited to have him come here and meet our team and get his feet on the ground. Some recent counties of note, of course, most of us are familiar with the Ask Me labor strike. That took up a tremendous amount of time for the county and our work that Rick and I had. And as I know, I'd like to shift over to Rick afterwards and give some updates as well, as we kind of divide and conquer as we work through. We obviously completed the CFO search. We have been in the process of a community development director search as well, that Rick can talk a little bit more on updates here. most of the folks in the room here, except for Zan, went through the tour of our MHC in Monroe with Representative Gomberg, and that was pretty productive, spending some time with him, and this is part of his district. We also met with incoming Representative Sarah Finger McDonald, and met for about an hour. Similar to those conversations that you have had, we shared our legislative priorities that you approved last month. And we kind of talked about some future opportunities to meet. I'm really looking forward to working with her next year. Not as much community engagement this last month because I was really had to be fairly hyper-focused on running operations and negotiations. Some other professional organization activities. I completed the lobbyist training up in Oregon. Apparently I'm a registered lobbyist, and I had one last meeting to go.
Lovely.
Yeah, ethics
You got
meeting.
some ethics.
I had some ethics training. As well as I attended yesterday, the Oregon Business Plan Leadership Summit. Some highlights is the governor spoke to us and we talked about her $39.3 billion budget with 700 million intended to be earmarked for shelter homeless and about 1.4 billion looking at infrastructure housing that she would like in the world of bonds and infrastructure to try to address the rents that are driving up costs and our housing prices. So she was pretty firm. She did create a little bit of rough feathers because in the afternoon we had a breakout session, and the two breakouts I attended, and again, there are folks in the room who also attended the breakout sessions and they can talk, was building capacity for rural economic development. The governor spoke a lot about putting Portland first as far as if Portland falls, and it really affects the whole state. And I think a lot of our rural partners, it didn't feel great, but we had.
No, it's true.
But it is true. And but that was kind of the scuttlebutt. And we were talking about funding opportunities and really working with the governor's office to help put together really good economic packages and appropriations. And we talked a lot of time about you get these appropriation and applications, which are one pagers, but then the follow through for organizations to, if they're successful to get the money is a lot differently. And it's a real struggle. So they have a capacity issue there, especially these cities that have like 4 employees or through the whole place. And yes, we want those appropriations, but what's tagged along with it is a lot of times you're filling out those applications and you don't even know what department it's attached to in the federal government. So they really feel, especially through regional solutions, that they could help break down those issues as they move forward. And then my second breakout I went to, which was really cool, was the Southern Willamette Valley Innovation Corridor. And really it's about the R&D investments, but also with our 2 universities and how they connect Oregon State and Oregon University. And so it was really run a lot by the younger generation and how they can work well with our groups. And then Steve and I spoke, Steve is the Lane County administrator, and myself, of how much, if we had better communications on a regular basis with our partners in the universities, it would be really helpful, especially around the R&D projects, how we can support them. And then we kind of sidelined into internships and how we can keep our best and brightest in this area. And we educate them really well, but they can't stay here for lots of reasons. And so it was more of a think tank session, venting session. And I think that was a really good discussion, and I really enjoyed that. And from there, I don't know if I have any more super incredible updates that we want to talk about, but we are beginning to talk with leadership a little bit on after hours, debriefing on the strike and what we as managers need to do and how do we heal as a workforce. And we did come out with some, next actions, which I will be happy to talk to them about, but I haven't been able to talk to my leadership team more thoroughly that we are on the same board. Some of it involves training, so a lot of it involves more inclusionary decision-making for folks who feel more part of the issues that we are all going to work on. One of my ideas is really bringing whoever's going to be head of the union next year to be part of our goal setting of what are the priorities of the Board of Commissioners to make them feel they're at the table, hearing about some of our work. I'm kind of excited about that. I don't know who the new president's going to be. I think the election is next month. But are there ways that we can bring more of our employees to the decision-making table so they feel more involved and close to the community and the decisions that we are making? So I'm really looking forward to talking to you about that next year. And those are my updates for today. Just want to know upcoming events before the end of the year is, again, community development director interviews continue, and we are having an open house for Zan's retirement. I hope you can all attend on December 18th. It's from 1:30 to 3:30. All are welcome, and we encourage you to stop by. So. And that's what I have. You have something, Rick?
I'll just add a couple things. New development director. So we had started that process where we're looking at some options of potentially recalibrating, obviously, the disabilities associated with labor disruption and just trying to ensure that we have the most effective process. More to come on that probably this week. More information. I do want to just highlight, as we always talk about, the courthouse project. And this is a big risk project, and it is starting to reach, as I've said, a bit of a tipping point here with just some of the permitting processes. I mean, we talked a lot about SHPO and working through the Army Corps. We got a surprise yesterday that apparently there was a change that they had to make and send it back to SHPO. And now it's another 30 days. So Rachel was good enough to reach
I
out
talked to her yesterday.
contacts at SHPO, but we still have the Army Corps. And it may be time to ask Hoyle to maybe help us a little bit on making a priority around that. But the other issue is that we need that permitting to then to give the city of Corvallis, which is another problem in terms of working through some, I'm just going to say, legal issues in relation to easement. This is something that we thought we had straightened out during the summer, but it's cropping up again. So we're starting to reach, a bit of a little bit of frustration in all of this as well, just to be honest, because it feels like we're in a bit of a just constant churning around this. So, and, we are looking at going, breaking ground in January, which is the worst time possible. We are starting to get closer and closer to, it'll be here before we know it, the time period in which we got to use our tax exempt money.
Yes.
I mean, it's been 1.5 years since we issued those bonds, so
Yep.
now we are halfway through it. So that is going to reach, we'll be talking to Greg more about that and how we mitigate that. But again, I just, don't ever like you guys be surprised on anything, but this is starting to now get to a point of we're going to have to escalate this with all of the different places to help us moving some things.
So I absolutely support reaching out to Congresswoman Hoyle. If, like, what do you need? Do you need?
Yeah, I just sent
Here to.
I'd be happy to make a phone call.
Yeah, I just sent an email to Rachel about what the best way. She got a hold of her contact yesterday and moved the SHPO piece. So I think probably whatever contact we can make with Coyle and I can give you the information in terms of who to talk to or who we've been talking to at the Corps.
That would be great.
I can.
I think it's got to go back to the core, but we will
Yes.
leave SHPO. So since it's back,
It sounds like
it's got to
you
go
may
back.
have, it sounds like you may have broke it loose on SHPO. That's at least what I'm getting from Gary. So we'll see. But yes, it does have to go back to SHPO. I'm getting the information. So I will go to both of you on the oil thing in terms of help there. In terms of Corvallis, I think I have a call into Paul right now just to see what he knows on this or what can be helpful. Again, I think it's a little bit of illegal entanglement. I know Vance is getting involved with their attorney in relation to easement, but I don't know all the specifics. This is the easement which you can get to the water sewer plant that is going to need to be put on the property. So there has to be a road, which requires an easement on both our side as well as Adam's property. And then, of course, there's an easement that actually is where the water sewer plant will be. Again, our understanding is those things would be between Corvallis and McFadden in terms of being able to put those in place, but now it feels like has to be done before we can move forward on our permits, and that's the part we're trying to really get figured out, because that wasn't.
Yeah, and my understanding was that all of the easement issues with McFadden were resolved with the court
Correct.
decision. So this is truly an issue with the city of Corvallis. And their designation of easement for our access.
Pardon me?
Is the issue over the city of Corvallis's designation of easement so that we have access to the
No,
water treatment
It
plant?
would be they're gaining the easement. I mean, we'll give the easement on our side. It's
Mhm.
10 foot on our side,
Yeah.
10 foot on the other property.
Oh, it's
side.
McFadden giving easement.
Yeah, yeah. But you're correct that the judgment from our standpoint stipulated all of that and thought we had worked through. So not sure why it's continuing to be kicked around this point, but we're getting to a very, very critical point.
So there's a portion of McFadden's land
Yes,
that is not owned by us
correct.
that okay, so we probably should have purchased that as well in the.
Well, we had stipulated easement in the
Easement, it was talked about.
Yeah,
in
in-
judgment.
in the stipulated
That was a
judgment.
Requirement
Mhm.
in terms of.
Yeah.
Settling the.
Of the settlement, that an easement would have to be negotiated to ensure that 10 foot of the land would be for the road. And then, of course, there is where the actual water sewer structure would be. But that was, again, all part of the.
Stipulated judgment.
The judgment, but because that easement isn't actually in place at this point, feel like we're kind of getting,
Okay.
we
So
can't move forward with the permits, and that's. We got the judgment, it's.
so is it a land use process then to put?
Well, there'll need to be a process in which the city of Corvallis will need to get their easement in place with on the McFadden property. But again,
And you're
the
already reaching out
judgment,
to Paul and-
the judgment, and I have a call into Paul to find out, okay, what comes first, the chicken or the egg here? And our understanding was that, all this was part of the stipulated judgment. They have what they need to be able to gain that, but it seems to be holding things.
Well, I have faith in all of you because we have made it through so much so far that I know you guys can get through this too.
Well,
Climbing a mountain.
it's very, very challenging and the timing issue is.
It's good. I'm sorry to show a little bit of frustration because this is getting, I feel like I'm pretty patient, but this is getting a little bit beyond, and I'm getting a little just antsy on this. And I thought, okay, if we get this done by December 31st, all right, but now we're starting to, I hear Gary talking about maybe February, maybe not dirt. So that's really starting to push things. And of course, the other issue is that we were in the summer putting out subcontract bids. Those are expiring.
Oh, gosh.
So we have a potential cost issue, and then, of course, there's the OJD, and I may want to ask Rayfield for some help on that, because I know he said he would. Again, I'm not as much concerned about that because part of that is in our court. OTAC needs to provide so I feel confident we'll get through there. So sorry, everyone. I mean, just, I
No,
don't,
we need
I
to
don't
know
want
this
you
stuff.
guys
Thank
to
you.
be ever surprised by anything. And this is a $90 million project. So we obviously know that there's a lot riding on this. So there you go.
I think that the most frustrating part is that working with the city of Corvallis, it's never been clear what the full checklist is. And that every time we think we're done, there's something else that comes up. And that's been true for months.
It is a frustrating process. Again, I understand that there are steps we have to go through and we want to follow all those, but it does always seem to be a bit of a moving target on things. And I get it. There's obviously a process we have to follow and want to do the right. Yeah.
Go get your.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
It's unrelated, but the December 31st, 2024 deadline for ARPA dollar obligations.
Yeah.
we're Good there.
Ooh, good. The last piece was a water sewer project out at LC that we work on, but I think we're all good there. I'm looking at Greg, but I saw the last message from Gary. It sounded like we have all obligations met there, so I don't anticipate any issues. On two other positive, next week you will have three positives, a presentation that comes on fleet. We will give you some good news that we're seeing some positive return in our external fleet program. There's still, obviously, we were impacted by the labor disruption, so a lot of the fees went down during that time. So you could see a little dip, but we are seeing some positive change there, so that's good. We'll be coming forward, just, you know, as a present to you, a gift to you, Zan. The health services restructure, we'll be providing a overview of where we're at with the core areas that we discussed with you back in the summer. And then lastly, you will have the regional housing presentation from Ed Fulford. And you will get the packet tomorrow. It's a nice presentation that Ed has done, and we've worked in partnership. But give that one some real look and thought about, because it has, you know, how do you want to proceed with this committee in terms of oversight and scope and budget. So there are a lot of things for you to take a look at. I think it outlines the issues pretty well. So that's again, it's positive. That's a positive, but it will require you to probably give some direction. So there you go. Sorry about the courthouse stuff.
Well, let us know what we can do, or, I mean, that is frustrating, because I thought we were right there in
Feel like
early January.
the way they keep going. Yeah, it's, I'm sorry that it is, you know, this is frustrating that we are at this place, so. And I promise we'll get working on this, and I will absolutely reach out to all of you to figure out. Rachel will help with her contacts at Chabot to make sure this stuff.
I already talked to this.
Okay.
Sure. AOC conference less than a month ago. It was wonderful. I forget what happened. Very worthwhile. Good place to make new contacts, renew old ones, figure out, especially with legislative session looming, just getting ready for that. And transition right into our one pager, and thank you, Rick and team, for getting this. I think I was bugging you just before the AOC meeting, so I had a good list of what our potential tasks are of both state and federal. We don't care where the money comes from. Identify the project and then figure out which bucket it might fit in. Just seemed like the Jackson Fraser Boardwalk project. I've just had very good response on that for various reasons. And so I'm hopeful that we can get that one across the finish line, and that it's not just a little boardwalk path, it's part of a larger system. It's in an area where some outdoor activities are appreciated, needed. The schools that use the area need supporting, and so I'm very hopeful on that one. anyway, thank you for getting that and just like this gave our list to Rep. Gomberg, I guess last week at the Monroe Clinic, but I'd like to tighten that up and have a couple projects that are in his district to put on his list. And so, I mean, it's nice to have a comprehensive list, but for him, get that down to one or two the projects. Let's see. Seemed like only yesterday, as it was yesterday, asking him, well, when do you need this? And he was talking about early January. So we probably something from LC and need to, as we discussed, need to kind of coordinate that ask and so that we can continue to be successful getting projects funded. Goal. Leadership meeting in Portland yesterday, real nice mix of government and business folks and it's a well-attended, well-organized event. I was on a roll there for a while. I had in-depth 25-second conversation with the governor on our need for 40 qualified counselors for the crisis center, and just that it's not just a Benton County problem, that this needs to on several approaches need to figure out how to get more qualified people in the pipeline so that our option isn't just stealing from other organizations to fill our needs. That's not a very good solution. So she was just standing there and her armed guard were 15 feet away from her. So,
Not right up there.
yep. Being opportunistic, but, and it fits with her priorities.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and that's always a good thing to figure out and where are the themes, how do our needs fit in with various themes.
Yeah. I want to expand on that point just for a minute. I read through the summary of the governor's budget and the issues underlying the behavioral health focus. And she does talk about the behavioral health workforce shortage and does talk about pipeline, but the issue that is not explicitly named that is still a challenge is the fact that we don't have reciprocity with the adjacent states. And I think that that is probably because there's some group that is insisting that we need to have the very high level of, standards that we have. But I would expect that to be an issue in the upcoming legislative session. And, having reciprocity with Washington and Oregon would be fantastic. It would definitely expand the pool of qualified mental health professionals. So it's just something to keep an eye on.
Is that the number of hours? Required?
That's part of the reason that we don't have reciprocity, I think, is because we have a much higher level of number of hours that you have to have, 1,000 hours of actual practice supervised, that other states have a much lower level of practical hours. So, yeah, it's a barrier. And one of the things that the counties are very frustrated about is that it's very typical for new people to come out from school and work for counties to get those supervised hours and then to become private practice therapists. And when they become private practice therapists, they don't, they can choose who they want to take as clients. And so they don't work on the challenging multi-issue clients that the counties have to face and are obligated by state law to serve. So the state has set up a kind of system that is, is doing exactly what it was set up to do. It incentivizes people to go into private practice and not to work on the much more challenging, work with the much more challenging population that needs the help the most. So, yeah, I hope that that gets addressed head on in the legislative session. I have no idea.
Do you know if there's any legislative proposals?
There will be, there is a working group that on behavioral health workforce and yeah, Gabe in the health and human services area. Those proposals will be previewed in the January steering committee meeting. So yeah, if there are, please share so that because this need is acute for us with the crisis center opening.
Guess along those lines, had a nice chat with Sarah Finger McDonald, and I think it's very worthwhile, especially on a new legislator, to let her know what our, again, we have a list and try to get her attention. Committee assignments come out within a couple of weeks, and so she'll have a better idea of what her areas will be. But found her to be very approachable and I think she will do a good job, and then it's us and our CFM folks making sure our interests are advancing. I'll stop there.
Sounds good.
Let's see, I also attended the Oregon Business Plan Leadership Summit, but we've heard about that already, so. Last week I did a ride-along with Officer Weichel, formerly Deputy Weichel. He retired and went over to the Philomath Police. I had been trying to get a ride-along with them or I should say Mariah has been on my behalf. For over a year, they've just been short-staffed for one reason or another, so I was happy to finally check that off my list. Philomath is definitely more slower paced than this other cities and Benton County, and returned a lost dog. He knew the dog's name, he knew the owner, not the first time. And in the process, we missed a call about a stolen car. So he was like, dang, he really wanted to get the stolen car, but the dog is home and safe. Today, so the Corvallis Chamber of Commerce has been going through a new CEO recruitment hiring process. I was involved with that somewhat, although their schedule made it difficult for me to participate fully. They have today at 2:30 to 4:30 an open house for one of the candidates. I can't remember, it's John David Key, or he might just go by David Key. So if anyone is interested in stopping by the chamber, 2:30 to 4:30 to meet him.
At their office.
Yeah. As I already mentioned at AOC conference, I was sworn in as co-chair for AOC Transportation and Community Development Steering Committee. I did attend the Council of Forest Trust Lands and Counties 7 a.m. meeting while there. Aaron Scar was reappointed as the chair. We got the annual report from the Department of Forestry. If anybody wants that, I can forward it along. You look like you want more things to read.
Not its own. Where was it?
And then, adopted the budget and then talked about strategy for a bill to try to help with the ongoing issue of the revenue loss from the HCP for those counties.
And for us, just for Gabe's clarification, we will, and Benton are not projected to see a revenue loss from HCP. It's actually pretty steady as it has been for the last, 6 years or so. And we literally get a windfall anytime there is a windstorm.
Yeah.
But other than that, we just chug along under all of the scenarios. I was actually really surprised when it comes to forest trust lands that, we have more acreage than Polk County does, more acreage than Columbia County has, but they are very, very involved and engaged, in these, processes in a way that we aren't. So the dynamics are always very interesting. Sorry to interrupt,
And I
but
think
just context.
Yeah, and there's multiple reasons why, but I think some, budget differences and population, anyway. If you want to talk to those counties, feel free, or talk to me offline if you'd like. A swearing in ceremony Thursday, January 2nd at 9 a.m. Be there or don't be. sworn in.
Or don't get a new job, I guess.
Yeah, so, and if, I think, so when I was sworn in the first time, it was the thick of COVID and I was allowed to bring my family, like my immediate family, and that was it. So I'm excited now. Yes, so I need to, so like, how many people can I invite?
I talked to more about that. It is still smaller, so not in slightly larger than immediate family, but not the whole entire public. Was my understanding. So
Okay.
it's not ticketed, but it's
No.
yeah,
You're not
Last
gonna
time
invite your
there was like
non-partisan
6
pictures?
people there.
yeah, more than that.
Yeah.
Is what she told me, but
Yeah.
she didn't give me a firm number.
Okay. And the David Gomberg meeting at the Monroe Health Center was mentioned. I thought that went well, and I'm happy that staff with CHC had arranged that. I would like to offer and encourage staff in the future when reaching out to other elected officials, if they have the chance to and want to pick our brains a little bit about strategy. I think us commissioners could be helpful in that, because any of us that have spent, time with Gomberg could have given them some pointers on how to be most effective.
Mhm.
Yeah, but overall, I thought it went really well, and I was happy that Gomberg took the time to travel there and see it.
He works hard.
He
works
does,
very hard.
yes.
I think it takes him 2 hours to get from his home to here. kind of.
Yes.
And he does that as often as he can.
And what I appreciate about him is he's very like cut to the chase.
Yeah.
Just, what he had to ask us 4 or 5 times, what's the bottom line? What are you asking from me? And just,
He's project oriented.
Yeah.
And which fits in pretty good with us having projects. May or may not fit in his buckets.
yeah.
My understanding was that he had asked for that tour.
Okay.
So, yeah, and that his primary issue was not the clinic per se, but it was actually the 340B program,
Yes.
the pharmacy benefits program.
Well, we had a whole, I shouldn't say we, but their staff had a whole presentation and
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
for him that lasted.
about how
close to an
essential that
hour.
is. Yeah.
But yep, having attended, I thought it went well. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. I'm glad it went well. I don't have much to report. I don't have anything on my calendar moving forward other than the last week of meetings next week. Actually, I have a very full schedule for the next week and a half. Amazingly. And I look forward to passing the baton. I will be there on January 2nd. And look forward to watching how things progress moving forward. Yeah.
Did you invite her or like who's inviting you? No, I'm kidding.
I'm gonna.
Well, we will invite you to the groundbreaking of the courthouse
We're gonna, yes.
I
we're gonna
hope
invite you to
so.
still-
and the Emergency Operations Center and all of the,
All the things.
all
the
the
things.
things.
Yeah.
Crisis Center opening.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you. I really appreciate it. And best of luck.
I do have one more thing. It's really exciting. Corvallis to Albany bike path has pavement.
Yes. Oh, the part that was just steamrolled is now paved.
Yeah,
Okay.
as of, last week.
Did you say it has been paved?
From,
No, is that, what you-
Yes.
okay, I heard it has a name. Apparently my hearing is not great today, so thank you.
this is kind of like every one of our other projects got delayed and, oh, let's do construction work in the winter and.
Yep.
But, I think, we're seeing and maybe motivated to get this little project up there to-do list, and so, to Malloy,
Mhm.
but, or into the children's farm home. And we have a planning grant for the long middle section that should be, going to.
And ODOT has the lead on the section. So, yeah, lots going on.
Just I bring that up because this path has been in discussion for decades. After a while, people say, you're never really gonna do that.
I have
Just gonna talk about it.
a couple of constituents that are very, very excited about that. So, yeah, they've been watching it with great joy, but yes, thank you. And it's exciting to hear that they actually have laid pavement. They won't lose that ground prep due to rainstorms. So I think unless there are any other issues for the good of the order, we are adjourned at 12:43 PM.
Yeah. I just gotta put something in to eat and I'll be right in.
Okay.
I just got a response from SHPO.
Okay, and you saw my response to the core, I just threatened the BOC on them.